Sick of all you sycophants, ignorance and miscreants, simpletons and little ants, trying to split their sentience. People peddle pestilence land, pipe on their settlements, and I don't think it was even food for it was excrement. Get your head in it. Second wind represent white shit, kid. I never stepped in it.
What's up? This is Techquila. This is the podcast where we talk tech while taking a shot of tequila every 10 minutes. I am your esteemed host, Daniel Regueira. With me today is
Holden DePardo.
There you go.
I am a co-host of Respaw Named Fire, which is every Tuesday. I'm usually on it with Chad Innes, who should have been here, but he got sick, so he's not with us today.
Yeah, but honestly, I think it's probably best if it's just us two, since he would have just been kind of there awkwardly, not knowing both iOS and Android. Anyway, sneak peek into what's happening, as if you didn't know from the title. But let's get into it. Today, I am drinking the same shit I usually drink, which is, for those of you that don't know, it's called Olmeca Altos. It is one of the better bang-for-buck alcohols you can get here in the States, or tequilas, I should say. So yeah, that's what I'm drinking. I know you have, do you have bourbon, or just, what do you have?
I got whiskey. I got whiskey this time.
What kind?
I think I had bourbon last time. Just Bullet this time. I had Bullet 95 Rye is what it's called.
Yeah, Bullet Rye is not bad.
It's not. It's one of my kind of go-to. Like, it's safe. I know I'm going to like it. I like Bullet. And this time I have enough, because last time we recorded longer than we thought we would, and I didn't have enough whiskey. So this time I can keep up.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's right. I mean, like, if you have to switch to wine, you know, it's not my.
That's what I did last time, because I felt bad when you guys were drinking, and I'm like, no, I'm good.
If anything, I feel bad that you had to mix like liquor and wine like that, which.
The next day wasn't super fun, but during the recording, it was fun.
Okay, well, I'll have you start us off, Holden.
Yeah, so we're gonna talk about the iPhone announcements as well as the Apple Watch announcements.
No, count down. We got to take the shot.
Oh, we're doing that. Oh, right. I'm used to my podcast. We just go into things. So we have to do drinking stuff. That's right.
That's right.
3, 2, 1, shot.
Okay.
Woo.
Well, now that you're rearing to go, I guess, go for it.
Yeah, I'm turning the timer. So in 10 minutes, we'll do that again. Yeah, so we had the iPhone announcements, which have been, I'd say, anticipated since they announced the iPhone 10 last year. Kind of curious.
Of course.
What was going to happen this year. And
first off, the names they're
the worst ever.
They're actually awful. So the typical convention that people were expecting was, like the S, right? So it's XS or 10S.
Yep.
And that's fine. It's weird because it looks like extra small, but it's fine. And then
it does. It's the extra small Max.
That's the thing. Okay, yes. So let's get into that. Why?
I was curious too, because iPhone 8 and iPhone 8 Plus was clear. We have the iPhone 8, we have the big iPhone 8.
And my presumption is that it's because the Max has more real estate screen.
Yeah, they said that. They said in the keynote, well, what's bigger than Plus? Max.
Ugh.
I thought that was kind of dumb. Like, I think people would have gotten if they just called it iPhone 10s Plus. People would have totally understood. They wouldn't have been like, but wait, it's bigger. Why is it still called a Plus? No one would have been confused.
No one's looking at the spec sheet being like, well, actually, this is more real estate on the screen.
I would love that. Like, grandma walks into the Apple store, like, correcting the employees. Actually, it's a 6.5-inch screen.
There's also 4 gigabytes of RAM. Thanks, Gertrude.
It's the worst name. My dad was telling me that it sounds, when you say iPhone 10s Max, right? It sounds like tennis match to him. And now every time I hear tennis Max, I think tennis match every single time.
Also,
it's so bad.
XS is like extra small Max. I'm like, what?
Yeah, or just excess. It's an excess. This phone is excessive. You don't need it. It's too much.
Oh, man.
Like, there's so many negative connotations to the name. I don't know why they chose the name like this. The best theory I've heard, I think it was on the Vergecast, they said that just like Mac OS 10 was the thing for a long time,
right?
iPhone 10 might be the name structure for a long time now, presumably the next 10 years, as they said last year. And we'll have like iPhone 10Y next time or something like that. Who knows?
No.
I don't know. I would be devastated if that's what it was. It's really bad.
What if they start doing like with Mac, where it's like iPhone 10 Leopard or whatever the iPhone 10 domesticated cat? Like,
That would be incredible. I would welcome that because it'd be so stupid. It's great.
What would it be? Because now they're doing like natural. They're doing like parks and shit and like mountains.
So they've done some cool ones. Maybe not cool by today's standards, I guess. But I don't know. But they used to do back in the 90s. It was Mac OS, and they do Mozart or they do Allegro, or they used to do something musically themed, which is kind of cool.
That's fun.
Yeah, but I've always liked Android, which is desserts, Android pie.
Yo, I have a fucking t-shirt that is all of the, it's literally just like a series of desserts, and people are like, why do you have desserts on your shirt? And I'm like, read them out loud. And only the Android nerds get them because it's like, I think it starts at C. It's like cupcake, donut.
Yeah, it's cupcake is the first one.
Eclair, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Goes all the way to the, I think Oreo. If not Oreo, then it goes to at least Lollipop. But yeah,
that's a cool shirt.
It's dope as fuck. I love it. It's by this woman named Virginia Poltrack, if I remember correctly. You can Google that if you want it. She's cool. Anyway, so yeah, these phones came out. They have awful names. They're all, edge-to-edge screen. There's no, like home button variety iPhone.
It's the same exact design as the iPhone 10, which Correct. I think was to be expected. I'd be very surprised if they do radical new design last year and then radical new design this year. So I expected it to be the same. Some people were upset by that, but I wasn't.
I mean, it makes sense to phase out the old, the old design for sure.
Yeah, I'm fine with the iPhone 8 design being gone now. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But in terms of like features and functionality, I was kind of like, okay, well, what are they going to add feature wise? And I think, because I expected more features, they just didn't add that much in terms of features. Like the past 2 years have been such small upgrades.
Well, I mean, the S, so like the original S was the 4S, right?
Yes, that was the original. Well, I guess 3GS was the first S.
Oh, correct. I didn't even think of that. Because I always assumed that the S was for Siri, but I guess not.
So I think it changes. The first time they said it was for speed because the 3GS was faster. I remember that.
It was a lot. I think wasn't the.
It was twice as fast as the 3G. I think.
Word. Okay. Gotcha. And this one, so I'm looking through reviews and stuff today, trying to get ready for today. And it seems, so if we're going to go in order, I guess should we go in order of price or in order of how they presented it?
Let's go in order of how they presented it. Because let's stick with the iPhone XS for right now.
Okay.
We'll go to, I'm assuming you're talking about 10R. We'll get to the 10R.
Yeah. Okay. So the XS, incremental upgrade from the 10. Apparently, so like, everything else is like a marginal upgrade except for, like obviously like Face ID is like marginally faster. The chip is marginally better. Apparently the camera is a lot better though than the regular 10.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have been hearing too many positive things about the camera, honestly, compared to what we usually hear. Trying to think. I mean, it got good reviews. No one said the camera was bad.
Of course.
Hear about that, yeah. But I was seeing a lot of headlines saying that the Pixel 2 camera is still better than what we're seeing in the XS right now.
Right. And
that was surprising to me because usually you see the back and forth where it's like Samsung is the better camera now. It's like, well, yeah, it came out 6 months after the iPhone, and the iPhone come out and be better. But the fact that people think the Pixel 2 is a better camera and it came out last year than this year's iPhone, that's pretty surprising.
Yeah.
But what surprised me with the camera the most, and the only person I've heard say this was Nilay Patel, said that it feels like Apple's change. I'm kind of paraphrasing him here, but they've changed their philosophy with the camera. Where it used to be, we want to take very natural photographs, very realistic photos, and now I'm hearing that they've kind of sweetened them up a little bit.
I'm looking at like in the Verge article on the XR or XS, sorry, not the XR, the 10s.
It's so hard not to say X. It's really hard.
I know. I go back and forth though. Because I'm one of those nerds that are like, actually, it's 10. I'm that guy.
I'm one of those nerds too, and I get like extra mad at myself when I do it.
It's like, fuck, why did I do it? Damn it. No, so I'm looking at, in the article they talk about, and I've seen other reviews talk about it too. It's kind of more like the Samsung phones and like the colorful poppiness. And then, so in the Verge article I'm looking at, they do, like the mouse over side-by-side photos. And the Pixel 2 XL photos are now the more like, quote-unquote, realistic, less fully saturated photos. And now the iPhone XS is the more saturated, like Samsung-y look, and it's not like it's less in focus. It just looks like, obviously, like if you're just going to ship this, like if I'm going to give someone a photo from my phone, the automatically saturated poppy one might be better. But if I'm going to use my phone as a camera, which I do sometimes when I'm on trips, or all the time. Like I like to take the photo and then edit it after on my phone, through like Lightroom or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
The Vosco Cam or whatever. I would prefer it to be, just a better photo that I can then touch up. So, I prefer what was the old iPhone philosophy, I suppose, as opposed to the Samsung one.
Yeah.
And now it seems like they're changing their tune.
Yeah, I mean, I don't take a lot of pictures. I mean, I have 200 photos in my library, not a lot. Like, I really don't take pictures. So, like, this doesn't personally matter to me too much. But it's a surprising change to see, because Apple has always been we want to replace, like, eventually these DSLR cameras. They always compare themselves to DSLR cameras. They still did that in this keynote as well.
Of course.
Yet they're not taking that approach anymore. And the reason this is, I think, an interesting issue, not an issue, but an interesting topic is that with processors, you can say, well, it's faster, and you can explain it to an average user. It's a faster phone. It's better in that regard. Look at these two phones side by side. One's clearly faster than the other. But in photographs, you hold two photos side by side, and it's so subjective.
Yeah.
Which one looks better? People are going to go, because you know about these camera tricks, you know about the exposure and what can happen with lighting in a photograph. You know about that kind of stuff, so you know to look for it. But if someone doesn't know how to look for it, they look at the Samsung phone with super saturated colors and go, wow, that looks a lot better.
Of course.
Because they're not looking for realistic photographs. They just went, well, that's more orange than the one over here, so it must be better. And that's what makes this kind of a hard thing, I think, for most users to think about.
I think that reflects, we're going to get deep in the weeds, but I think
that makes sense what I just said?
No, totally. And I think that reflects like the shift of Apple's philosophy, period, in the past few years. Like going from this is like the most worn out, tired narrative ever, but going from Jobs to a Cook Apple, it seems like the Cook Apple is more of like a markety for the masses type thing, whereas Jobs was for like the techie, nerdy bunch, kind of.
Well, I think it's a really good comparison you're making there, because Steve Jobs is definitely more of I'm going to show you what you want, and Tim Cook this is what you want, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And to your point about they always compare, it's funny because you mentioned that they always at the keynotes compare to DSLRs, and I totally forgot about that. But before we were talking, in this Verge article, there's one of those little mouse over side by side photo things, and they compare it to like a Canon 5D Mark IV. Oh shit! Yay!
I got to pour a shot.
Yeah, me too. Don't you worry.
All right, ready?
No. Yes.
All right. 3, 2. Is that ominous piano tones? 3, 2, 1, go.
There you go.
Ooh.
Oh, scheisse.
All right. What were we saying? Pour your shot now. Set timer as well.
Yeah, I'm going to pour that now. You're correct. Yeah, so they always make the comparison to DSLRs, at least in the recent past they have on the iPhones. And so here in this Verge article about the 10S, the XS, XS. It really just does sound like a parody of capitalism. Anyway. Man. Anyway.
The new Ferrari XS.
yeah. They just call it the materialism iPhone. So when you mouse over it, it has the iPhone XS photo. They even have identical apertures, so they did it right in terms of comparing the photos in portrait mode, because the portrait mode is what they're touting as like the thing that's supposed to compete with. Like,
is this the image where they show the bokeh effect?
Yeah,
and how it handles objects?
It's garbage. Like, it's just hot trash.
Yeah, because the picture, if I remember correctly, because I'm not looking at it right now, but with a real bokeh and a real camera, you can actually tell that like streetlights and things like that will be treated separately from something inches away from it, because it's looking at actual objects in 3D space, whereas the phone is just kind of saying, okay, well, it's X feet away, so it'll blur to this much. It's not looking at individual objects, it's looking at a distance. These objects are all 3 feet from the camera. Those objects are all 6 feet from the camera.
I mean, the way the camera, the DSLR does it is just optics. Like, it's not a computation,
Yeah, exactly. It's not a computation. It's looking at, it's
like just the way the glass works. Like,
exactly. Well, because they can really look at the actual light waves.
Right.
As opposed to an analysis of them.
And so this, it's like mad grainy, this photo. Like, I don't know if it's because it was like poorly lit or what.
To be fair in that, though, I mean, a DSLR camera, I mean, I'm not sure if it's DSLR or not, but it's a high-quality camera. It's always going to look sharper than a smartphone camera in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, it'll always, because it has larger sensor, larger lenses, et cetera, et cetera.
Resolution's far higher. Megapixels is far higher, probably.
And they always do better with, because the megapixels themselves are larger, apparently that helps a lot with low light, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of shit that makes them better. But, I mean, I don't know. There's like a certain... It's gotten to a plateau for like regular people, I think, on the phone, where like they're good enough.
Absolutely.
But just that one photo looks like shit. Anyway, go on. I don't know what else to say.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just that it's interesting to see that change happen with the cameras. It's an odd thing to see happen with Apple.
Yeah,
but I think it kind of fits in with the full, like how Tim Cook's Apple thinks about things different than Steve Jobs' Apple. When I say that Tim Cook's Apple, I don't mean like Tim Cook. I mean the Apple that he leads.
Correct. Yeah. I would agree with you.
So yeah. But one thing I want to talk about these new iPhones is the neural engine.
The new chip or the old chip? That's the new chip.
So it's in the new chip. It's like it's a segment of the processor dedicated to artificial intelligence.
Oh,
tasks.
correct. Yeah, like the machine learning portion.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it was 2 cores, now it's 8 cores. And I'm thinking like, man, that's some really sick hardware. I'm sure that's really great. Too bad it's not running on Google Assistant, because I'm sure it would be a lot more useful. We'll talk more about that when we get to iPhone versus Android, because I'm curious what your thoughts are on Siri versus Google Assistant. We'll get to that in a little bit. But it's a shame that awesome hardware was wasted on Siri.
I feel you. I totally feel you. And that, I mean, yeah, that's the whole, that is basically my entire iOS versus Android thing. That's not true. That's a big part of it, but it's not the entirety of it.
I'm actually glad to hear that, because that's one of my big things too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just
what did they? Did you watch the keynote?
Oh yeah, I watch every keynote.
I only catch
I'm a big Apple fan.
Every other one. I have a job, man. It's hard.
Oh no, it's fine. I prioritize it. I've always loved them. I watched them as a kid growing up.
So what did they?
It's just something I like doing.
What was the use case for the? Because I remember last year the use case for the machine learning was like for VR shit, I guess, right? Or no?
Yeah, I mean it's basically. I mean think of it as you have a CPU and you have a GPU. When tasks come up to the computer that are more about graphics processing, it's going to go to the GPU as opposed to the CPU, because it can be dedicated to a different area. It's the same idea, but for machine learning. So when an app is running and there's something that's more tailored for machine learning, or something that needs to run in the background for machine learning, they're going to send it to the neural engine instead.
Okay, that was a good analogy. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Okay. But are there apps that, like, what are examples of apps that do that though? Do you know?
I don't have any examples off the top of my head, to be honest.
Yeah, because like as an iPhone 10 haver, I don't think I've seen shit.
I think it's one of those things you're not going to notice. It's kind of like when the iPhones went from 32-bit to 64-bit.
Oh, word. Right.
It's like a coding thing in the background that programmers are going to worry about, and it's going to make their apps run better, but to a user, they're just going to go, oh, it's faster.
Gotcha.
But they don't really know what happened in the background to make it
So that would be something that you have to talk to devs to see if it actually made a fucking difference or not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming it makes a difference. It makes sense.
I mean, it sounds extremely powerful.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think the idea of
Apple's really good at like selling shit. So.
Well, here's a better example of how to explain it. Actually, so when Google does artificial intelligence stuff, which I think based on what we just said, we can both agree on they're way better at it.
Yeah.
They do that processing on their servers, so it doesn't happen on your phone.
Right.
But Apple doesn't like that philosophy because they don't want your information on the servers.
Correct.
Because they don't want your information public like that.
Right.
Or as open, I should say. Your information is, of course, on servers. But when it comes to processing that personal of information, they want to handle that at a local level.
Right, on the machine, so it's encrypted and shit. Yeah.
Exactly. So this is kind of just going further into how Apple approaches AI versus how Google is approaching AI.
Okay, cool.
But it's a cool concept. I just wish that they would actually do something with it, because you're asking the question, what is it used for? I don't know.
Right.
And that's usually what Apple is good at, is we have this new neural engine. This is what we're using it for. Here's a developer to talk about, and they didn't do any of that stuff. Whoop.
Okay, so shot time.
Shot time.
We take shot.
You want to count down this time?
Yes. Okay. Shit, I wish I could count in Russian. I can't. Anyway. 3, 2, 1.
Woo. All right. I will set the timer again.
I'm going to learn how to count just for that accent.
I was going to say, like, Look up speaking Russian phonetically, so you can just say it next time. I don't know how to speak in Russian at all, so
I don't either. I know how to say "da." I dated a Russian girl for a little bit, so I know how to say "What are you doing?"
Would she ask you that often?
No, I was
what are
at
you
like
doing,
her parents'
Daniel?
place.
Daniel, what are you doing?
I was at her parents' place, and they were talking to the dog. Like, this was a weird thing that they would say to the dog. "What are you doing?" That was like their...
Oh, I do that too with my dogs. Like, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing right now? And they're just laying down doing nothing. Like, why the fuck are you looking at me, dude? Like, I'm sleeping. Get the fuck out of my face.
Why do you keep saying "Что ты хочешь" at the dog? And they're like, it means "What are you doing?" And I was like, oh. That's the one thing that stuck.
Well, speaking of dogs, the iPhone XR was also announced at the event.
The XR has, so like, I've noticed, obviously the first thing you see is that it has like the 8's camera to like distinguish it from the fancier versions.
It looks like an iPhone 8 from the back, completely.
Correct. And then it has, much like the 5C, I believe it was, correct? A bunch of different colors.
Yep, very much like the 5C, yeah. But they're aluminum, not plastic this time.
Which is good. But then that's also a good point, because the XS, or that's the 10S, and the regular 10 are steel. And this is aluminum, so I guess it's more likely to get dinged up, which I guess is fine.
Yeah, I mean, every iPhone has been aluminum except for the iPhone 10 model, so I think it's going to be fine.
It seems and correct me if I'm wrong, but just looking at photos, it seems the bezels are bigger.
Yes, they are. So here's what's happening there is that the reason they can get bezel-less on an OLED screen with the iPhone 10 is that you can bend an OLED screen inwards, but you can't bend an LCD screen like that.
That's a good point. That's a good difference to bring up. This is LCD.
Yep. And
the 10 and the 10S are not.
This is actually where I think Apple's clever design comes into play. A lot of Android phones have been having a problem with bending their displays, which is why you have a chin at the bottom of a lot of these Android phones that still have notches. They don't do the full edge to edge everywhere. And it's because they can't bend at the bottom all the way. Well, Apple got around this just by not adding a chin at the bottom, but just making what the chin would have been at the bottom the equal bezel around the entire phone.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's smart. I think it looks way better than a chin. The chin always looks terrible.
I would agree with you. We'll talk about that more later.
Yes.
In a certain context.
I'm assuming you're talking about Pixel 3 XL.
Shh. It'll come up.
Yeah.
My ire will be... anyway, so there's a white one, there's a black one, there's a blue and a red. Is there more than that?
There's like a coral, it was like an orangey pinkish almost, and then there's like a red.
Oh, word. So there's two different types of reds.
Yeah, and there's
and there's a yellow. Oh shit.
The yellow I think looks kind of nice.
I don't mind it. It's kind of cool. Okay, so LCD instead of OLED.
Yeah.
And apparently the LCD people are like, this is actually nicer than the OLED. I don't know if I agree. I've always been a fan of OLED.
OLED always looks nicer in my opinion.
Word.
But the LCD here looks really nice.
I mean, it is Apple, right? So like,
they always make the best
displays. It look good. Okay, so I was looking at a comparison of the sizes, and you've seen these in person, so you can speak to this probably.
Only the 10S and 10S Max.
Oh,
10R,
okay.
Yeah, I haven't seen the 10R yet.
Well, so this is what I was going to speak to. I'm looking at an image of the sizes, and the 10R, the budget phone, is in a weird space in between the 10S and the 10S Max.
Yeah.
In size, which is odd.
It is. I've been trying to wrap my head around that, but here's what I think. Here's what I think the business decision is. The standard size of an iPhone, because the iPhone XR is the cheaper iPhone at $749 versus $1,000 for the 10S, but it's the default iPhone. So 6.1 inch is the default size for an iPhone. If you want a smaller iPhone, you got to pay more for that. If you want a bigger iPhone, you got to pay more for that.
I see where you're going. Yeah.
I think that's the design decision, but I think it's also a happy medium between the two.
You have to pay more for choice. Yeah, that makes sense. Like for a decision, you got to exactly. You got to pay more to have a decision.
Yeah. You want decisions in life? Give me money.
Yeah. Oh, you get a nice color, but otherwise you have no choice.
I personally would take a 10R over a 10S.
You think so?
I absolutely, without a doubt, yeah.
Why?
I think the 10R is really good because this is where I think this is a really successful keynote for Apple. Where I think a lot of people have been kind of down on this keynote. I think this is a really good one for Apple because of the 10R. The past 2 years of iPhones have been really since the iPhone 6 came out. You've been seeing some fragmentation in the iPhone models, where like it was really subtle at first. You just had bigger screen, but I don't count that as fragmentation. We had like the optical image stabilization was specific to the iPhone 6s and 6 Plus. 7 Plus and 8 Plus have the dual cameras. But then when you look at last year, you had iPhone 8, 8 Plus, and 10, which all kind of had slightly different features from each other. Mm-hmm. And iPhone XR really has just about everything from an iPhone XS, minus some smaller things that I don't think most people will care about. Like,
so it doesn't have 3D touch.
It doesn't 3D touch, but it can do those functions with haptic touch, with some exceptions. It has one camera, but it can do a lot of the two-camera tricks outside of zooming. It's really an iPhone X, like S, just it's aluminum instead. And it reminds me of the Apple Watches. You can get an aluminum Apple Watch, or you can get a stainless steel Apple Watch.
Oh, that's a good point. You know, I'm with you. You know why I'm with you, though? Because of the price.
$749? Yeah.
It's way cheaper.
It's way more affordable.
So what's interesting is the lineup that they're offering now still includes the 7.
Yeah, for $449, which is a great deal. That's still a good phone.
I know, and it's really great that they do that just for like price point entry, I think.
It makes more sense than having an SE.
For real. Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Wasn't there a rumor that they were going to update that one?
Yeah, they're going to have like an iPhone that was the size of an SE, but the screen size of an iPhone 7 because of the edge-to-edge.
Word.
But I don't think that's going to happen at this point.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so like the 10s the 10R is just like a budget version of the 10s and like has colors.
You're right. It is a budget version, but it's so funny saying the budget version that costs $750.
Yeah, that cost a fucking lot of money.
Which is still $50 more than the iPhone 8 cost last year.
Oh, it is, isn't it?
It is. But it's enough of a cross between the Plus that I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I feel you. But like overall, like I agree with you that the lineup is a win, but generally pretty boring because we kind of...
Oh, it's boring for sure, but at least it's consistent across the lineup.
Yeah. I do think that this is a really smart lineup. Again, very cookie-in, right? Of like having a decent lineup. And it being boring as shit.
Like in an ideal world, both would have the same water resistance. You know, things like that. Like both would have OLED screens. Both would have the higher resolution displays. These things aren't like, to most people, they're not the most important thing. People have been surprisingly down on the 10R's display because it's not as high resolution as a 10S. It's the same resolution, or not resolution, it's the same pixel density as an iPhone 8.
Which is fine.
But this is what I think is hysterical. This is a great example of media nonsense. The story I've been seeing spread around just from talking to people about the phone is that the iPhone XR has the same pixel density as the iPhone 4. And you say it that way, that sounds bad.
It does sound bad.
But the iPhone 4 has the same pixel density as an iPhone 8. So it's like, why did you go as far back to the iPhone 4 to make that comparison? It's stupid.
That's a good point. I mean, like people like shitting on things. You know how it is.
Of course they do, yeah.
Yeah. That totally makes sense. I didn't even think about that. That's crazy. Huh.
It's ridiculous. But I think the iPhone XR is a really great phone. And I
also,
really think...
Can we talk about the pixel density is like fine, like on the iPhone 4.
It's 326, which means you can't see the pixels. So what are you complaining about?
Yeah, who the fuck cares? Like beyond, what is it? Like, is it 300-ish?
Yeah, it's beyond 300, yeah.
Like what?
So technically speaking, you shouldn't be able to see a pixel difference between a 10S and a 10R.
Right. So who the fuck cares?
Exactly. Who the fuck cares? I have a Pixel 2 XL right now, which I think has a pixel density closer to a 10S. I think it's like the 450 range. But I was looking at my friend's iPhone 7, and I'm like, these look virtually the same to me.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't have the eye for it, but I'm like, it's such a non-issue.
You have a human eye, man. Like,
yeah.
I'm
only human.
That's right. Human after all.
But I think it's a good phone.
References whenever I can.
Oh, Daft Punk's great. I always appreciate those. Yeah, I think this is a great phone. But I think the iPhone XS is not going to sell as well, and the iPhone XR is going to sell like crazy.
I think you're right.
XS will sell great. I'm not saying XS is going to sell bad, but XR is going to explode.
Yeah, I feel you.
You will see that phone everywhere.
I totally agree with you.
Do you have an iPhone X right now, you said?
Correct.
Do you have any want to upgrade at all?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I kind of figured.
Yeah. I see no reason to.
Yeah.
Also, like, I would stick, to be honest, like, being a tech nerd, I want to have, like, one foot in the, like, probably Pixel and iPhone camp. And, like, rather not spend The thing with iPhones is you can buy an iPhone and like it be good for longer than Android.
Yeah, I mean, my phone. Shot time.
Oh.
I'll remember my thought. Well, while you're pouring, I had an iPhone 7 up until my Pixel, and at this point, the iPhone 7 is the lowest tier iPhone you can buy now, and that was a great phone. I actually think the iPhone 7 is like the perfect iPhone. I think it's a great, awesome phone. Oh, I love my iPhone 7.
Did you like your lack of a headphone jack?
It never bothered me, but I had AirPods, so for that reason it didn't bother me.
Fair enough. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, trago. Oh, baby.
Ooh.
Oh, baby. Okay, start that timer.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for reminding me.
Okay, we're already talking about it. So the main reason for this episode was to use this to lead into us.
Did you want to talk about Apple Watch at all?
Not really. I mean, like,
not really.
Is there anything? Okay, tell me. Is there anything exciting about it?
I think it's awesome.
Why is this better than the Series 3?
I think that Apple Watch Series 4 is going to be huge, just like iPhone 4 was huge. And iPhone 4 kind of set off the huge smartphone trend that we saw. Right. I think this is going to do that because what this does, first of all, it's been perfected over many generations now. I saw one in person today. The display is absolutely incredible on it. It really goes like all the way to the edge. It's kind of like an iPhone 10 without the notch. It doesn't go all the way to the edge, but it's just about there.
Yeah, hit the differences between the Series 3 and the Series 4. So the edges or the screen is
yes, the screen
edge to edge.
It's just it's edge to edge, but more like a 10R than a 10S. It's not all the way to the edge.
Okay.
Just about enough that it counts. But it does make a difference. The watch faces feel more robust. It does feel more rich. They were talking about that in the keynote of they have new watch faces to make it take advantage of the extra room, and they really do. It looks fantastic. But you're adding all these extra small things, and that's what I think the Apple Watch was missing is that I like an iPhone and I like a Mac, and I like an iPad because Apple had this tendency of thinking about small things in the interface that made a difference. And in the Apple Watch, they're kind of doing that now with health functions. And I think the falling stuff is a really good example of that, the fall detection. So if you slip, trip, or fall, it will detect that you've fallen. And if you don't respond to the watch within a minute, it will just contact the authorities, send your location to your emergency contact in your phone. Mm-hmm. That's a really small thing that's like, not new, no one would have. That's new for this phone.
Is it? Oh, watch. I thought that was in the older phone or the older watches.
That's brand new for Series 4, and it's those things like it's a little thing,
right?
Who would have thought of that? Of course, but now it's like, of course, that makes complete sense. Of course, that your smartwatch should do that for you if it's health focused,
right?
And I think that those small things is what's going to make the Apple Watch stand out more and more and more. And they've already been doing things like that. And I feel like, and the reason I say the iPhone 4 is that when you look at iPhone to iPhone 3G to iPhone 3GS, they were figuring out basic things like copy and paste, recording a video on a smartphone. Like, how do they picture that happening? And they've done that now with the watch. They've done that. They have GPS and they have cellular and they've worked the crown so it does like the haptic just like a watch does. They've done these small things to make it feel like a full experience. And that's where the iPhone was at iPhone 4. iPhone 4 finally introduced multitasking. They finally had these things down that were basic for what a phone should be doing. And then from there, it branched off into what we see nowadays. Things like Uber and all that didn't happen until after iPhone 4. Because at that point, the smartphone market exploded. And it wasn't just because of iPhone, to be fair. Android market exploded at the same point. But I think the same thing is going to happen with the Apple Watch in that this model is just, I think, finally has the legs to do that.
I think the Android Wear scene is pretty lacking.
It is. Luckily, Qualcomm finally, after a few years, updated a processor that can run on Android Wear devices. So hopefully we should see updates there soon.
Was that a hardware? It was a hardware limit or something?
It was a hardware limitation. Qualcomm didn't have a new chip to give anyone. So why would anyone make a new smartwatch if you had no new speeds to talk about? It just wasn't worth it. So hopefully that'll change. But also Android Wear sucks compared to Apple Watch.
Yeah, and the only smartwatch I've ever owned, I'm actually wearing it right now, is a Pebble, which is old as fuck. And to get it to run on your iPhone, you have to use like a third party thing. There's like people who were Pebble employees that started the third-party thing called Rebel. It's the same with an R instead of a P.
If you have an iPhone now, you should try an Apple Watch. It's tough to say. Yeah, it's worth it, it's nice. So here's the thing: is I had an Apple Watch. I now have a normal watch because I decided not to have an Apple Watch anymore.
Right.
So,
I'm such a normal watch person now. I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of where I am too. I really like having just a traditional watch that just tells me the time. It's kind of nice,
and it looks cool.
Yeah, I do want to get a smartwatch though that's still analog. Have you seen these? They're like hybrid watches.
So that's what I liked about the first Pebble I got was the round one, the Pebble Time round, and I thought it looked cool as fuck compared to like the Apple Watch or the other square.
Square watches are strange. Even in analog watches, like mechanical watches, square is strange to me.
Well, like all the like fucking hipsters now wear like the calculator watches because everyone has an Apple Watch, like, which is totally a thing now. It's really annoying. I saw it a lot in Berlin. It's hilarious, but I'm also like, ugh.
Do you make calculations that often that you couldn't? You couldn't bear to like wait to get to your phone to make that calculation. You had to use your watch.
It's totally in rebellion against like the Apple Watch.
No, it's stupid.
The only one I've seen that I actually want, I feel like I should want the Apple Watch, but I don't. The only one that I've seen that I do want is the TicWatch E, which looks pretty interesting.
I haven't even heard of that before.
The TicWatch was one that it runs on Android Wear, and it the original TicWatch had it such that it had one button, but then the entire other side of the bezel, from top to bottom, from lug to lug, you can like touch up and down to navigate the UI. Yeah, like going up and down, like literally rubbing the side of the watch, which sounds weird, but it's actually like super intuitive, like
interesting
UI navigation wise. The one I'm talking about is more of like an urban, like sports athleisure type style, which I guess so is the Apple Watch to a certain point. I just can't. The Apple Watch is so ugly to me. I can't.
I don't think it's ugly, but I don't think it's the nicest looking watch.
It's just weird.
It's the square. It's strange. That's another thing too. Is the Series 4 does have more rounded corners, and it doesn't feel rounded. But since the corners are rounder, just like an iPhone X screen is rounded on the corners, it feels a little bit more watch-like.
Okay.
But I have to say you should go to a store and check it out just to see it. I think it's really goddamn nice.
Okay. Fair enough.
I think it's the best thing they announced.
Fair enough. Very and impressed. Because I mean, like what. So, the screen's better, but what makes you feel like it's the iPhone 4 to the Apple Watch or to the smartwatch scene? Like, because it has the potential to explode like the iPhone 4?
Because they've worked on all these small things from Series 0, 1, 2, 3 up until now, that the watch is now kind of complete in the same way that iPhone 3G, 3GS are figuring things out, and then iPhone 4 was kind of like a complete phone. I feel like Apple Watch is in that same point now where they've been working on it. Now it's complete. It really has a very clear vision now. Mm-hmm. Whereas before, when it was first announced, it was like, it's everything you could ever want it to be because they didn't know what it was. Mm-hmm. And now that people have been using it a lot for fitness, they've been tailoring it towards fitness. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there are things that Apple Watch can do that no other smartwatches can even remotely come close to doing.
Right.
So like here's a small example, and this is not an example for me. This I can't remember who said this, but it was super smart. So I'm just going to say the credit. The credit's not mine. I want to be fair. The credit's not mine to this one. But they're talking about construction companies, right? That have these Android phones attached to them with fall sensors, so that if they fall on the construction site, their boss is notified immediately, and they can get and help that person, because on a construction site that's probably very dangerous.
Right.
That stuff all costs way more than an Apple Watch Series 4 would.
Right.
So that's now going to be sold to these construction companies in bulk because of that. And think about what other industries it's going to play into. Like, I immediately thought of my grandma just to strap an Apple Watch to her wrist just so you just have a stupid life alert thing attached to her all the time. She's going to get more out of an Apple Watch. And I'd say that I'm not sure how much a life alert is, but there's a monthly cost to it. Is it going to be that much different than an Apple Watch when you consider all the other benefits you're going to get from your Apple Watch as well? Like, these things add up. And I think it's time now where Apple Watch has gotten to that point.
Okay.
So I'm impressed.
You might have sold me with the analogy just because I remember my first smartphone was the iPhone 4, and it was like life-changing.
So was mine. That was the first iPhone I bought with my own money. Was an iPhone 4. I loved that thing.
I remember because we were on Verizon and I was like waiting for it to come out on Verizon.
That's right. There was a big launch for that too. For me, it was iPhone 4, but I was on AT&T, but it was just so hard to get one. And I went to the Apple Store just about every day because I was in high school. I had saved up my money. I had money for it. I was just waiting to spend it on an iPhone. I was so excited.
They're still doing the Nike cross thing? Yeah.
They're doing the Nike. They're still doing the Hermes still. Hermes, whatever it's called.
No, you said it right the first time. Hermes, whatever the fuck. So but the Nike promotion is just like a band, right? It's not like the actual watch is different.
Yeah, it's a band, and then there's a different watch face that's specific.
Okay,
but it's dumb. Even if I bought that, I wouldn't use that watch face.
Oh, but it's cheaper because it's like aluminum instead of the steel one. No, these are still aluminum. Why is it cheaper?
It should be the same price as an aluminum Series 4. It shouldn't be any different.
Not paying attention.
Are you looking at a Series 3?
No, I'm looking at Series 4. These are all Series 4.
Interesting. It shouldn't be any different in price. That'd be weird. Like, get the special edition that costs less than our normal one.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's because the more expensive ones have cellular. That's why.
Oh yeah. Oh, shot time.
God damn it. That was quick. Fuck.
Is it quick? Or are we just having a great conversation?
There you go. This was long overdue, and we haven't even gotten to the overdue part.
What's that?
The fucking, I'm not even gonna...
Oh, Android versus iPhone?
That's right. Well, there you go.
Versus iOS. I had to correct myself on that. One second. Let's take the shot and I'll explain that.
Okay, you count.
3, 2, 1.
Boom.
I keep catching myself saying Android versus iPhone. iPhone is hardware. Android is software.
You can.
I know
say
you
that.
know what I mean, but it bugs me. And the same thing of like iPhone 10 versus iPhone
Right.
X.
I mean, it's not categorically 100% accurate, but you could still say that it is still accurate.
It's still accurate, yeah. Like people know what I'm talking about. But if I were writing a paper, I wouldn't say, because I'm writing something. But
that's fair. Okay, well, let's just get into that because I've been itching to, and it's kind of like the main thing I wanted to do this episode.
I think we were going to talk about this in the original, the episode we recorded together a few weeks ago, but we just didn't have time.
Well, there was not enough time to do that.
We talked about everything.
This is a whole thing. Okay, so Holden and I are coming from two different angles. I've been on Android for like ever. So I had a iPhone 4 forever, and then I saw the HTC One, and I just jumped ship. I was like,
that was a good choice. That was a good phone. I remember that one.
It was an amazing phone. The first
that was
phone
the all aluminum, right? It was all aluminum. It had the speaker grill on the top and bottom, right?
Yes, it's the fucking stereo front facing. Ugh.
That was a dope phone.
Yeah, and then I got into like what makes Android, like custom ROMs and shit. Like I hacked the fuck out of that phone. And then from there I went to the Nexus line. And then the Nexus to Pixel, and then Pixel to the iPhone 10. Just because I had my qualms with Android, but you went. What did you do?
We actually literally have the exact opposite story. So, except for the beginning, I also had an iPhone.
This is why it's a good conversation.
I actually think this might be the best two people to get together to talk about this because we have such a good perspective. I think because we've used both. I think it's important in this conversation that we've used both. I started with an iPhone 4. I had an original iPhone that was like a hand-me-down from my dad. It had like this horrible dead pixel issue, and like it.
Was that
I
the
didn't
3
really use it.
Or before that?
No, this is the original iPhone.
So the 3 was the second one.
3G was the second iPhone, oddly enough.
Oh, there is no 3.
Yeah, it was iPhone 3G, iPhone 3GS, iPhone 4.
Oh, because 3G was how I got the internet. Right.
Yeah, exactly. The connectivity stuff. So I had an iPhone 4 as my first iPhone that I bought, and I consider like my first iPhone because the other one was just like a buggy mess with like dead pixel issues and just it. This was my first iPhone 4.
Right.
And then I got a 4S because I was working at the Apple Store at the time, and that was my first launch. So I wanted the phone I was doing my first launch for. I wanted that phone. And then after that, when I moved to Chicago, I'm like, I'm going to try Android. So I used the Nexus 4 for about 6 months. It was a good phone, but I'll talk about why I didn't like it at the time in a second.
They had cult followings, the 4 and the 5.
The hardware is fantastic. My problem was not the hardware. Hardware was so cool. It had that like kind of glittery back.
Yeah, I remember. Yes,
that was really cool.
Back.
It sounds dumb saying it had a glittery back, but it actually looked cool. Look up pictures if you don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it looked great.
And then after that, I went back to iPhone again. I don't remember which iPhone it was. I think it was the iPhone 5. So, or no, it wasn't iPhone 5. It was 5S. The timeline's lost on me. Anyway, I had iPhone 5S to then 6S, and then I had a 7, and then I just went to a Pixel 2. Mm-hmm. So I've now settled on Android, I think.
Pixel 2 XL?
XL, yeah, I got the XL, of course.
Right.
So we have very different journeys in the sense that
correct.
We started in the opposite and ended up in the opposite.
Yeah. And I still there's still looking at the Pixel 3 leaks, I'm still thinking about.
I can set a timer. I'm starting it right now.
Oh, no, now you got to make it 7 minutes.
All right, I'll make it 7 minutes.
There you go. That's what I do whenever I forget. I'm I'm just going to guesstimate.
Almost made it 70. We'll do 7.
70 minutes. This is going to be a long episode, y'all.
Every 70 minutes, we'll take a shot.
We'll not get drunk at all.
We'll take one shot the whole episode. You were saying, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know where to begin, man. So, obviously, let's just state the obvious. With iPhone, you have, and iPhone truly, you have, talking about hardware, you have a better build in general.
I think so, yeah.
And then talking about the software, you have the animation still, looking at, I don't have a Pixel 2, but looking at my Pixel Gen 1, animations are still a lot more crisp on the iPhone. The screen, looking at other people's Pixel 2s, there's a weird blue tint thing on the screen, which is odd. And I think that's because they source them from LG, and LG is not great at OLED.
It was a common issue with OLED screens for a long time.
Yeah,
they just they must have had an older panel technology or something.
But it was specifically LG's because
it was. Well, Samsung and OLEDs had the same issue for a long time.
But iPhone, the iPhone 10 uses Samsung OLED.
Yeah,
as well.
The issue's been fixed at this point, but just for some reason, Pixel 2 still has that crappy blue tint.
It was because fucking LG, man.
Yeah, probably. Well, I think, yeah. Where does LG or Apple get their displays from? Is it Samsung or
It's
LG?
Samsung, yeah.
It's Samsung, okay.
Which is why, all the Samsung screens look fine, and then, all the iPhone screens look fine, and then the Pixel XL did not. And then the Pixel, the Pixel 2, the smaller one, was HTC. And the larger one was LG, which is bizarre. I think this year they're both going to be, since Google bought part of HTC, it's going to be internal. I don't know exactly who's.
I have no idea.
I know that the Pixel XL 2 or Pixel 2 XL, sorry, is LG made, but
I like it a lot so far. But the display I know is not the best, but it's never bothered me. It's not been an issue for me.
So there's so many things to compare if we're going iOS, Android, though.
I'd say to start off at least, what's your initial, if you were to pick one right now that you've kind of used an iPhone 10 for the past year, are there things from Android you miss?
Yes and no. I mean, I've had, it was such a Stockholm syndrome experience. And you know what
you
adds
fell
to
in
it?
love with your iPhone because you hated it so much?
No. I mean with Android and
okay.
Going to the Google line. So going from HTC to the Google line, it was a Stockholm experience because not only was I on Nexus and the Google or the Pixel line, I was also using as my carrier Project Fi. So I was
you were all in on
deep.
Google, man.
Yeah, I was balls deep with Google, and it got to the point where they neglected. You know how Google is, where they release this cool thing that everyone loves, and then they neglect it as a product, and it kind of atrophies.
Yeah, that definitely is the thing Google does.
Yeah, all the time, and people are "This is a great product," and then they're like, "How about we make it semi okay?" And you're like, "Why? Why did you do that?" It happened with Hangouts. It happens with so many things. It happened with Fi. And
the number of messages apps from Google alone.
Yes, exactly. Oh my god, it's become a joke.
It is a joke.
Oh my god, it is a joke. It is because earlier this year, right when I got my iPhone, they had so they have messages. Is that what the SMS app is called?
Messages, yeah.
So they have messages. They have Allo. They have Hangouts, which they still haven't done what they said they're going to do with Hangouts. And then they also, I think it was the end of last year, they people thought this was a joke, but they literally introduced a sharing messages option in YouTube. And it was what are you doing? What are you doing? What? No one asked for this. Literally
it's no one in Google talks to each other. Oh, you were already making a messages project? I'm sorry, I'll stop making mine. That doesn't happen at Google.
It felt they were literally parroting themselves. Anyway, so but to add to that saga, like right when I got this iPhone 10 in March, I believe it was end of March, Google announced that they were not supporting Allo anymore, so that they can put all their messaging like employees onto the like RCS initiative.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, here's another complication in this story. So the main thing that pushed me over was, so I'll just give a brief story. Project Fi, when I first got on it, had it such that if you used Hangouts as your SMS client, you could SMS from desktop using Hangouts, which was dope. And back then, on Android, you could not really message from desktop like you could with iMessage. And so you literally...
Which is a great feature, by the way.
It's a fantastic feature. And the only people with Android that could do this were people with Project Fi who were specifically using Hangouts as their SMS client. And
that's a very specific niche.
It is. And they eventually phased that out. Well, and before they phased it out, like Hangouts as an app just got neglected. Like it became a garbage fire. Like Gboard, before it was called Gboard on Android, it was just called Google Keyboard. And the like search GIF option in the Google Keyboard would not work with Hangouts. Like you would try to like put in a GIF and it would be like, that is not compatible with this app. And you're like, why the fuck not? And so, yeah, like using it as your default SMS app was a garbage experience when like before that, like, you know, like maybe a year or two, if you rewind a year or two, Hangouts was an interesting experience because it like unified Google Chat and SMS for Android folks, which was a good idea. And then for some reason they split it off. It's a whole thing. Anyway, the messaging debacle was like one of the things that pushed me over the edge. And I was like, I just want iMessage in my life. But to answer your question, if I had to pick one right now, I would still stick with the iPhone, but then like keep an eye on what's happening with the Pixel. Just to...
Is that because of messaging in particular?
You know, iMessage is a big reason, but also it's just...
I hear that a lot. That's definitely a really important thing.
iMessage is extremely sticky. But on top of it, I'm on the iOS 12 beta, and like if you go on... like, so if you're on a beta on a Pixel, it is mad buggy. Like even the stable version is extremely buggy, which is really fucking annoying.
I'm actually glad you brought that up, because I used both betas this summer. I used the iOS 12 beta, and I used the Pixel beta.
Was it a pain in the ass on you?
You want to know what? iOS 12 was the best beta I ever used, and then Android 9 Pie was the best beta I ever used.
Really?
Yeah, it was really stable. More stable than iOS 12.
Okay, let me pour the shot, and then I'm going to complain. I have so much to complain about.
So anyway. I've been using betas on iOS since iOS 5. I love using beta software. I know it's going to be buggy. I know it's going to be a mess, but from day one I can use beta software.
It's really not that bad for 12. Like, it's fine.
12 was the best beta ever because it's all about stability fixes. But there have been some really awful betas on iOS. Counting? Oh, I'll do it fine. 3, 2, 1.
Shot.
So
you're drinking alcohol. Hit the timer.
You were saying, sorry.
Okay, so God, there's so much drama in my story of switching. Okay, so literally not that long after I switched from my Pixel XL that I have right here in front of me to
Pixel 1 XL?
Yes.
Okay.
The original Pixel XL, which is like, God, it's such an awful iPhone clone. It just has a chin for no reason. Like, why do you have a chin?
So many Android phones are terrible iPhone clones.
Well, this one has like the space for a home button without a home button. And it's like, why? Just put a speaker there. They didn't put two front-facing speakers. And I was like, why didn't you use that for a speaker, asshole? Like, you're just ripping off
Well, they did that
iPhone.
on the Pixel 2, so they figured it out. Eventually.
Thank God. Yeah, I saw that and I was like, thank you for learning a lesson, you piece of shit. Anyway, talking about learning lessons. So as soon as I jumped ship from Android, in the Google Messages app, I'm sure you're aware of this, now there's an option to use the Google Messages app, you know, the SMS app, on desktop, where there wasn't when I was on Android. And so now you basically have iPhone or iMessage-like functionality in terms of being able to message from desktop. And I'm upset. I'm like, why didn't you have this when I was on Android, you asshole?
It's a nice feature to have for sure. And I think you know, just from the group chat that I'm in with you, that I don't text a lot at all.
Word.
I
do.
just never text. It's just, I don't know. I like talking with people. I'll call someone before I text them.
It's
I'm very
constant
strange like
for
that.
me. You're an old man.
I'm a totally old man. I get that I'm the weird one here. I get it. But that was the thing for me too with going to Android was I really liked having the option to say, hey, I'm going to leave my phone in my room to charge. I'm going to work on some homework on my laptop or something, and I'll get a text message if it comes to me. Like if it's something important, I'll still get it on my laptop because it's an Apple device. iPhone, iMacs, iPads, all synced like that. It's great. Really awesome. So that was definitely a weird thing for me, but there's an app on Android called Pulse.
Yes, I've used it.
It is so much better than the Messages app on Android, and it does have a Mac client.
Wait,
so I can actually get my text messages on all my devices. Can I talk to you about
Pulse?
Yeah. Do you not like it?
No, okay, so at least when I was only on Android before I got an iPhone, Pulse was like, it's probably better now, but back then, like talking about latest like January, February, the MMS options, like sending GIFs and like links and stuff, was like mad buggy, like super glitchy.
Was it? Okay.
And it pissed me off so much.
So I think the app is made by like one person though.
It's literally one guy. So like props. I'm not trying to shit on you, guy. If you're listening, you're great.
But if you want a text message app, it has to do that. Otherwise, what's the point of having it?
Yeah, and that's the thing is that like I like, I'm a funny guy. I like using GIFs to make jokes and shit. And so like,
I like GIFs. I'm a GIF person.
That's what I'm saying. Is like, and maybe he fixed it and it's fine now on desktop. But anytime on desktop you try to send an MMS, it was like, what is a GIF? I don't know what that is. But Pulse is great. Pulse is great.
I use on the Mac just if I get a message, just send something quick back in response. But it's so much more customizable than the Messages app on Android is. There's just so many small little features I really appreciate.
You're talking about Pulse or the Messages app?
Pulse. Mm-hmm. I really like it, but the fact that it syncs across was nice. At the time, Android Messages didn't do that. But if you want to do Android message syncing, you have to go to a web browser. Whereas Pulse is a native app, and I prefer having a native app.
Oh, there's a native app now. See, when I was using it, it was a fucking browser. What the fuck?
It's gotten better. It
has. That is like infinitely better. I was not aware of this.
But here's the thing: is MMS might still be a nightmare because that's one thing I'll say about Android is that MMS and picture messages, multimedia messages, is such a disaster on Android.
Well, because it doesn't have
iMessage.
Exactly, because it's not like a messaging platform in the SMS app, and that is literally. I mean, I could do a whole podcast on just me ranting about how awful Google's messaging strategy is. Like they needed.
It is the worst thing about that company right now.
It is, and Hangouts was their opportunity to do an iMessage like competitor, right? Where it was like, look, unify them. If you're, if someone else is also using Hangouts, then do like iMessage where it just goes over Hangouts and it goes over data. Mm-hmm. And you could have done that, but they were like, no, for some reason people are getting confused because you had the option of switching between SMS and Hangouts like in the corner while you were using it. And they were like, people are getting confused, so we're going to force separate SMS and Hangouts.
Yeah, I think RCS can solve some of that, but that's a whole nother topic. And if we talk about that, we'll never talk about iPhone versus Android. So
okay, so keep going, and then we maybe if we have time, we can talk about that because I'm down. But
yeah,
so like what? So I guess same question to you. If you had to pick one right now, I'm assuming you would pick the Pixel 2 XL.
I would pick the Pixel 2 XL, and I think it's for you. The sticky thing about iPhone is your messages. For me, the sticky thing about my phone, my iPhone, was Apple Music, and Apple Music is available on So, and Apple Music, it's a very niche thing. I'm not saying Apple Music is better than Spotify. Apple Music for me just happens to be better than Spotify because I have all these songs I've bought in iTunes over the years, and that's just bundled in with my streaming library. With
that's
Apple
fair.
Music.
Although are you aware that you can upload that to Google Play Music?
Yes, when I had my Nexus 4, I did do that. Right. But because I'm an Apple Music now, it just made sense to switch over.
That's fair. Also, Google Play Music is as I was on it for a while because I pay for YouTube Premium, and it is the ugliest.
It was really terrible.
It's
on my Nexus 4, and I'm sure it's gotten better since 2012.
Yeah,
when I had my
it's still ugly as fuck.
4.
It really hasn't.
Okay.
It really hasn't gotten better. It's ugly as balls.
But Apple Music is great on a Pixel. It works just as well as it would work on an iPhone.
Yeah, I trialed it on my Pixel for a while, a few months ago, before I got the iPhone. And just because, I was like, again, like Stockholm Syndrome. I was using Google Play Music for a while, and then I like did the trial of Apple Music, and I was like, this looks so much better. God, so there are so many things you can talk. I'm collecting my thoughts.
You're fine. So yeah, I think for the sticky thing for me was my music, and since my music came
That's
over,
fair.
like, well,
Like,
then I had nothing. Yeah, fuck it, exactly. But also, I've been down. I tried this thing on my iPhone. People have this weird thing where they keep their iPhone. This is weird to me. People never restore their iPhone set up as new. I do that all the time.
Why the fuck? I did that immediately from my iPhone 4, and I got like some shit that I forgot about that was great.
Yeah, so I completely set up clean slate when I get a new phone. I never bring anything back, and I just had my iPhone 7. I erased it completely, and I'm like, I'm just going to use Google Apps on this and just see what that experience looks like. And I'm like, holy shit, these apps are really nice.
Yeah.
And I had worked at the Apple Store for about 6 years, and I don't work for Apple anymore. So, like, you know what? I don't have this need to use an iPhone anymore. I've been an Apple fanboy my entire life. Let's try out Android and see what it's like. And when I was using the Nexus 4, Android didn't feel there for me.
I feel you.
The app experience was so much stronger on iPhone, and I'd still say it is stronger on iPhone to this day. But it's definitely good enough now on Android where I don't feel a need to jump to iPhone. There are definitely apps that are still only available on iPhone that it bugs me I can't get them on my phone.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned it on the last episode.
Yeah, but it's not been detrimental enough that it's bothered me.
Sure.
But I've been thinking a lot about why it is I prefer my Android phone. Getting to that question of why I pick my Android phone over my iPhone, and my Pixel feels like it's my phone.
Yeah.
Because I can customize it and change it.
Exactly.
An iPhone feels like a template for somebody else's phone.
For sure. 100%.
Which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. For security, it makes it better. It makes it easier to use because it's just the home screen layout is mostly what I'm talking about there. And how that gets laid out. Because it's a grid of icons, it's very easy for someone to pick up and learn how to use that. Android doesn't have that as much, but for me, that's not a problem.
And I will actually dispute the usability thing in terms of, or at least for younger people, maybe this is the case. But on Android, one of my favorite things is that when you go into settings for the iPhone, it feels, and maybe this is because I've used Android for so long, but it feels convoluted as fuck in the settings. There's so much shit going on.
I feel the exact opposite.
Really? Oh my God. So maybe it is because we're used to the old shit.
So
because
again,
it feels like the information architecture and the settings in Android makes infinitely more sense than in iOS. Do you feel the opposite?
I feel the exact opposite because, to be fair, I worked at an Apple store for 6 years, and in the last 3 years of that was teaching people how to use iPhones and iPads and Macs and stuff. So I would just be able to tell people where things and settings are. Mm-hmm. So of course it makes sense to me because I had really deep knowledge of
it was your job.
App. Yeah, exactly. So it's hard. It's been really hard for me to use the Android. So I think that's just one of those things of, well, wherever you start is what's going to feel the most natural.
That's fair. The other thing though, so this is a legit thing. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people talk about how Apple will take this thing from Android and develop it better, and Apple still hasn't done this yet, even on iOS 12. They haven't taken shots.
Finish your thought, and then we'll do shots.
So I'm gonna pour it as I talk.
Okay. I'll do the same because I didn't pour mine either.
Notifications, fam. Notifications on Android. If you go into the settings for notifications, you can turn off banner notifications for everything. By banner, I mean the thing that pops up at the top.
Yep. I'm going to settings right now to take a look at this. It's funny. I've been using my Android phone for so long, but I can visualize exactly what you're talking about in iPhone settings.
Yeah, dude. So in iOS, there is no way, if I want to turn off all banner ads for all apps, I have to go into every literal fucking app and turn it off.
I just did that on my Mac. I did the Mojave beta on my Mac and set it up as clean install. I had to do that. It is such a gigantic pain in the ass. I actually don't see that option.
In Android, you should.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yep, there it is. Allow notification dots in general for all apps. Turn off if you want to.
And
stuff
so
that is
here, I'll
nice,
go.
Yeah.
I'm literally holding one phone in each hand.
Does your Pixel have Android 9 Pie on it?
Yeah, so it's like looks totally different now. Now I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it is a little bit different. Settings app actually changed in Android 9 Pie.
No, it did. So I'm confused now. Okay, so like notifications, blah blah blah, apps.
Some things you can turn off, some things you cannot.
So I remember it such that I could like turn off. Man, this changed. Fuck me. My analogy is wrong now. Yeah, notifications, blink light, default sound, blah blah blah. Here, let me search. Are they called banner on Android? What are they called?
They're called banner on iPhone. But I don't know. I haven't seen the term on Android, but I know what you mean. Banner is like when it goes in and goes away, comes in and then goes away, and an alert is when it stays and you have to respond to it in some way.
Anyway, well, apparently that might not be the case here, but yeah, at least in the previous version of Android, you could like be like, I don't want any of this type of notification, or I don't want any of that type of notification. For all apps. And in iPhone, it's like, no, you have to go into like the discrete settings for every fucking app and turn it off for every fucking app.
It's something that Apple got a little bit better with iOS 12.
iOS 12 helped a little bit, but it still doesn't allow for like banners specifically.
It's like one thing, so like with iPhone, and this is something that Apple does, is where Apple doesn't like to tell. When they're telling you to buy a product, they like telling you this is how things should be.
Right.
But when they're doing things in their software, they kind of like you to take agency and say, I don't want notifications from this app. Apple doesn't like to tell you to do that kind of thing. They want you to tell the phone to do that kind of thing.
Right.
But Google takes the opposite approach where, like, a notification, if I dismiss it all the time, eventually it'll kind of say, hey, you dismiss these a lot. Do you not want to see these anymore? And it just asked me. It didn't.
I love that.
That's the kind of thing that Google is better at. And that's where notifications are a lot better on Android than iPhone, I think.
Yes, I love that shit. I love that so much. I actually haven't fucked around with the... Is it called Pie? Is that what it's called?
Android 9 Pie, yeah.
I haven't even paid attention to what the fucking...
It's really good. I like it. But it's hard for me to say what the differences are because I didn't really use Android Oreo that much.
But it's not even like a specific pie? It's just pie?
It's just pie, yeah.
Oh, that's a dumb... I don't like that.
I would have liked Popsicle. That would have been a good
Popsicle would have been dope as fuck, but also like Lollipop is similar. Let's take the shot. I'll count. Okay.
Wait. Oh, that's right.
We haven't taken it.
I'm like, I forgot to set a timer.
No, you're fine. Okay. I'm gonna count in French. Trois.
Wait.
Pour, go.
Okay.
Okay. Boom. Set the timer.
It's going. All right.
This is a thing. Yeah, I'm also, man, my Pixel screen is not as good as the iPhone 10 screen.
Oh, no, definitely not.
Unfortunately. Also, the Pixel 1 was not great. The Pixel 2, I love the Pixel 2 design feels like it was done by some like Scandinavian design company. Like it feels like a Volvo subsidiary did them.
I really like the Pixel 2 design. It's really nice.
It is so good. It's so good. And
So I knew I was going to get an Android phone. Yeah. And I saw the leaks of the Pixel 3 XL with that just revoltingly horrible
thank you for
notch.
Bringing it up. I was about to bring it up. Yes, the Pixel 3. Oh, my God.
And I literally said I was going to wait until October to get the better phone, but fuck it. I'm getting a Pixel 2 right now because that is horrible. I didn't get an iPhone 10 for many reasons, to be fair, but one of which is I don't like notches. I just don't like it. I'm going to try to not have a phone with a notch if possible.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like notches. But so you hate the notches on the Pixel 3. It sounds like.
Oh my God! So like, if you look at the notch on not only the iPhone 10 but on previous Android phones this year, for instance, the LG, I believe it's the G7 had a notch. The new OnePlus 6 had a notch, and they're all fine in my opinion compared to the iPhone 10 notch. Like they all look very similar.
They're all wide. They're not. They're wider. Yeah.
Exactly. They're not taking up that much space just because it's like a little bit more next to the bezel. It's not that big of a deal. If you look at, and I hope for the sake of the Pixel 3 XL that this comment that we're making ages poorly and it looks great, and that the leaks were not correct. But if you just look right now,
I hope so too.
Right now, just Google like Pixel 3 XL leak, and you will see pictures of it. And the notch is very, very... So it's not as wide, like you're saying, but it's extremely deep, which makes it even more noticeable. It's like a really shit hairline. Like
I'd rather have
mine.
a wider notch.
Correct.
The deep notch, it looks so ugly.
It's awful.
I've never had a reaction to a product where I said, I'll buy the old one.
Yeah. Also,
I've never had that reaction.
In the face, in the notch, there's two very obvious front-facing cameras, and then there's the grill in between, and it looks like a little like sad face, like a little smiley face. A lot of people were just like showing how it looks like a little like. But
like, here's the amazing thing about it. Whenever like an iPhone's been announced or like a leak, because that happens all the time. People are like,
right.
I don't like it. It's like, I don't like it, but I'll get used to it. I know that. With this one, it's like, with the Pixel, it's literally gone to this extreme. I don't like it. I'm going to make a conspiracy about how Google is faking these leaks. Have you seen these?
No.
There's like this conspiracy that Google is faking these leaks knowing it looks terrible, but they're actually going to release this thing called the Google Pixel Ultra.
Oh, the Ultra. Oh,
yeah,
man.
which is like no notch at all. I'm like, the fact that your leaks are so insulting to people that
they're conspiracy.
They made this conspiracy theory. Yeah, that's embarrassing.
The Ultra is actually interesting because there was documentation from like last year, like just after the Pixel 2 release, that showed that there were like, you know, like in the Android open source project. There's documentation for 3 pixels, and so people were theorizing that like, oh, so like there's going to be 2 regular pixels, and then like kind of like how the iPhone lineup was back then, there's going to be like this premium
$1,000,
lineup, or this premium option, and I think. Since then, it's been debunked from like, you know, the people who are like insiders. There's just going to be 2, and that was just like a option to play with. Yeah,
lately there's been leaks of press images, and they just include the Pixel 3 and the Pixel 3 XL with a notch. The regular 3 doesn't have a notch for some reason.
Oh, I am probably, just because the Pixel 1 XL, I don't like big phones anymore. Like, I'm just not into it. And I would like to have I have a Project Fi number again because I went to Europe, and it's a really good service for international service. So I was like, yo, I'll just keep this. It's $20 a month, and I'll just throw it in a Pixel. And I was like, this Pixel is hideous. I can't keep this Pixel. So I might just get the regular 3. That's like probably going to be okay looking.
You know, it has a 5.5 inch screen. The Pixel 2 XL has a 6-inch screen, so it's not that much different.
But it is the Pixel 3 XL is hideous.
Sorry, did I misspeak there? I'm drunk at this point, so it's hard to tell. The Pixel 3 has a 5.5 inch screen. The 2 XL has a 6-inch screen. So it's not that much different than the 2 XL sizes.
Oh, okay. That's what you're saying. Yeah. Also, like, God, if you look at the 3 XL, just like talking about how ugly it is, not only does it have that deep, like laughing at you notch, it also has a huge chin.
Yeah.
And I get it for like the front facing speaker. I get it, but I don't like. But don't do that. Like a notch plus chin is the worst thing.
I don't have a picture of a Pixel 3 XL in front of me right now, but I'm holding my Pixel XL, my Pixel 2 XL in front of me right now.
It looks great.
It looks great. The speaker isn't that large. It doesn't take up that much space. That chin is way bigger than the speaker is on a 3 XL. It just doesn't make sense. It's so heinous looking. It's unbelievably terrible. It
genuinely is. I don't understand why they couldn't take the Samsung approach and do like just like the bezel on top and bottom, like a symmetrical one. Yeah. Because like it looks.
The Galaxy phones look good. They really do.
They do, and the Pixel 3 XL looks like if you took my receding hairline plus a huge chin, like just an immense forehead. So basically, like me, if you turn my head into a smartphone, this is what it is. It's awful. It's so bad. Well, it just reminds me of my balding. Like, it's the worst.
That's what phones should do, is remind you of your balding head.
They should remind you of like your insecurities every time you look at them.
So, here's what's most baffling to me about it is that I am not surprised to see that all this year we've seen Android phone with notches because the iPhone did it. It's not surprising at all.
Yeah, popular.
But the fact that at the end of the year, the last Android phone of the year to release with a notch is coming out, and it just happens to be the worst looking notch ever.
It's the worst notch by leaps and bounds.
Who approved it? Like, it's really terrible.
It's genuinely awful. And what's funny is that like last year's designs. I mean, I would have loved if the smaller model had like a more or less like edge to edge bubbly look like the XL.
Yeah.
But, it didn't. I wish it did. But anyway, so like last year's designs, the Pixel 2, like in my opinion, as a designer, and, I talked to like my designer friends about it, generally, the consensus is they knocked it out of the park. It looks like some sort of like craft design place in like Sweden or Norway like designed it. Like it looks great.
Oh, the Panda phone with the two-tone back.
Oh my god, the Panda! I want the I might even go on eBay right now to try to find it. Like it looks so good. Like
that's what I have. I have the Panda phone. It's really nice. That orange button on the side. That sounds stupid to say it has an orange button on the side, but it's so classy looking.
It sounds awful, but it looks so good. Like I love it. I genuinely love it. I actually don't like the smaller phone, the blue one with the like highlight. I think
it's a weird blue color.
Yeah, the colors are what are off for me.
It's a very strange blue.
But man, people have feelings about the chin and the forehead. It's bad.
It's really terrible. I mean, the fact that I would consider myself a futurist in the sense that I will wait for new technology to come out to get the newest thing at launch. I'm that kind of person. So the fact that I would decide to get the older technology,
the opposite, yeah.
Like that's really bad for Google.
It's really not good.
It's really bad.
It's really not good.
I'm sure it's gonna be a good phone. It'll be a good phone. It just happens to look ugly.
The other problem is that like people are talking about how their Pixel 2 and their Pixel 2 XL is getting a little laggy, and it only has 4 gigabytes of RAM, whereas the OnePlus phones now have like 8 gigs.
Yeah, the 8 gigs of RAM. Yeah,
which is wild.
I don't know how they can do that at $520.
Because they're based in China, and that's how they're based in Shenzhen, and so they can they can just make shit mad cheap.
It was between a OnePlus 6 and a Pixel 2 for me.
Oof. Yeah, I mean, like the thing with OnePlus is that they're awful at supporting their phones long term, like even worse than Google, which is saying a lot.
But Google's better than any other Android manufacturer about it. That's just a problem with
Samsung
Android.
Might be better.
No way.
No?
100% no way. Yeah. So
for sure.
For sure. So Google Pixel is the only Android phone you can buy that will get the new software update every single year. It's the only Android phone you can buy that will do that.
Well, so like the Pixel is not guaranteed. If you look at the guaranteed list,
it's 3 years.
Yeah. So it's like 3 years from purchase or whatever.
Yeah, but no Android phone can even guarantee you 1 year.
I thought. Well, I don't know if Samsung guarantees or not, but Samsung, if I remember correctly,
they can't promise that because Google has to make the software and then they have to tailor it to be TouchWiz.
Yeah, correct. Then that's the reason why I don't even fuck with like third party shit is because like I'd rather get the shit like immediately as opposed to waiting for the people to fucking skin it or whatever the fuck. Oh my god,
shot time.
Jesus H Christ! I told you this is a whole spiel. This. Like comparing iPhone to Android and shit.
Yeah.
Okay, I have like specific points I wanted to hit that I haven't hit. So let's take the shot and then I'll hit those points.
Yeah, we've been talking a long time just about Pixel 3.
Correct.
Yeah. Which is fine. I like talking about it. I'm not complaining.
I mean, like, this is the thing is that, like, despite having an iPhone 10 and it's a reliable phone and I love that it's reliable, unlike the Pixel phone and the Nexus phone I've had, I still nerd out about, like, the future Pixel phones because I genuinely loved them and I want them to be good phones.
I think it's another way we're the opposite. We're like, I'm having a Pixel phone, I'm excited about it, but I'm still really curious what iPhone next year is going to be like.
The literal opposite.
Yeah. Yeah, let's break down the software.
Shot. I'll count. You got to take it.
Oh, I already took my shot.
You took the shot? Fine. I'll count for myself.
For you.
Okay,
3,
you count for me. Go.
2, 1, go for it.
How dare you take it without me? I'm offended.
I literally was like, shot time. Take the shot. Let's go.
I'm profoundly offended. No, anyway, so so you feel that way? That's funny you feel that way about iPhones. Because I genuinely like will Google like Pixel 3 leaks like on a semi-monthly basis, you know?
Well, I went to a Best Buy today just to see the new iPhones because I knew I was recording this tonight and I wanted to see them beforehand, but also just because I wanted to see the new iPhone.
Right.
I have no compulsion to buy.
Wait, so it's in the stores now?
It came out today, yeah.
So I thought it was available or it would ship in like October 20th or some shit like that.
Oh, the XS and XS Max are available today. 10R is available next month.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Why is the 10R available later? That's weird.
Because they I have a theory on that. Their selling price per iPhone has skyrocketed the past year because more people bought the iPhone 10 at $1,000 than previous years where they never had an iPhone for that much money. But this year, more people are going to buy the 10R. So they want to be able to tell their stockholders our iPhone selling price didn't drop that much. But if they release the 10R right now, it will drop. But the quarter doesn't end for a few weeks.
Right.
Before the iPhone 10R comes out.
It's all that numbers game.
It's all that numbers game. But they don't care about profits. They don't care about that. They've said that.
They're not capitalists. They don't care.
They're not capitalists, no.
Of course
they're just doing it for the good of the human race.
They're not the most profitable aren't they like literally the most profitable company, or like the highest stock?
They're the most profitable smartphone company.
No, but didn't their stock break like the most?
1 trillion?
Yeah. Because I was working at a financial company that I loathed. I'm sorry if you work there and you're listening, but I hated working there. As like a lefty, it was the worst. Anyway,
why? What lefty works for a financial corporation? That's
the kind that needs a job.
It's funny. So, what was I saying? God, I've had a lot of shots now. It's hard to like formulate a thought.
Welcome to my podcast.
It makes it fun though. So, iPhone. You're talking about phones.
Okay, here. Let me jump in.
Yeah.
I, as an Android user, I love going from Android to iPhone 10. I was talking to one of our ex-neighbors, no longer a neighbor, but still a friend that I see in the gym, about how he's been like Samsung forever, and now he's jumping on the iPhone bandwagon because the marketing got him. And I was like, damn, homie.
Interesting.
Like, yeah,
that's not a change you hear very often.
That correct. And but I'm not surprised. Just because the iPhone 10
Apple
has a lot of
marketing is
allure.
very good, and the iPhone 10 is an appealing phone.
Exactly. And like generally speaking, going from Android with the software buttons to iPhone 10 as opposed to literally any other iPhone with a hard button.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that.
It makes so much sense, like user design wise, and it makes so much sense to the point where literally Android Pie copied it for the Pixel.
It's great too. It is really awesome.
Does it behave more or less like the iPhone 10 too, where you swipe up and it's home and shit?
So swipe up will bring you to your multitasking view. Swipe up further will bring you to your app tray. But you just hit the home button to go to
I remember
home.
this.
Yeah.
So you
it's
like
a little
swipe
bit
and
different.
hold, and it'll go app tray.
So it's strange. So like the home button has all this contextual stuff to it. So it's
right.
Swipe from bottom up to go to your multitasking. Go top up further to go to your app tray, and then kind of hold on the home button and then swipe left and right to switch between apps.
God, that's such a techie's phone.
It makes complete sense. It's very intuitive. It makes complete sense.
I like how they ripped Apple's shit and then added some stuff, and it still makes sense.
It's honestly, I really like it a lot.
That sounds dope as fuck.
But it's also an option. You have to go into settings to turn that on. Otherwise, it behaves exactly like Android has with the back button, the menu button to see all your apps running.
Where in settings is that? I want to see if I can turn it on my Pixel.
Just look up gestures.
Okay.
That's one nice thing too, is search in settings is very nice. I don't know if that was always in Android, but it was not always in iOS.
It was not always. It is now, thank God. I am looking for swipe up on home button. No. Yes.
Just literally look up gestures.
I did. I'm in the gestures section.
Oh, okay.
And one of them is swipe up on home button. I guess that's it. Yeah, that's it. I'm gonna turn it on. Oh shit! Yep, there.
And
it
then
is.
like one of the buttons goes away. Do you notice that? Of the three buttons on the bottom, one goes away. Okay, yeah, you did it. Yeah.
Okay, so it's tap to home like normal. Swipe up for multi gestures. And
swipe
then
up
swipe
further,
up real hard for the app drawer. That's
I like that. That's actually really nice because I can be in an app and be like, "Oh, I want to go somewhere else," and you can swipe all the way up.
Even more nuance on the iPhone 10. This is dope. I like this a lot.
It's really nice.
This is so good. I'm sorry. I'm like jizzing.
So here's one thing that's great. Right? Hold on. This takes a little bit of practice. But once you get the feel for it, you get the feel for it, and it's perfect. And you never think about it ever again. But hold on the home button for half a second, then start swiping left and right, and you'll feel a little vibration to let you know you're swiping to the next app. And that works really well.
Wait, it keeps triggering Google Assistant. Hold on.
So it's weird. You have to get the timing of it down, but once you get it down, it's perfect. Half a second. Don't even hold your finger on the home button more than a second. and just start swiping to the right immediately.
Oh, to the right. Oh, to the right. I see. Oh, yep. This is dope. This is dope
And
as
then
fuck.
you can start moving your finger back and forth, left and right.
It's hard because I keep triggering Google Assistant as I try. Hold on.
It takes a little while. It took me a little while to get used to too. And this is where Apple's better, because Apple, you would just be able to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
But it is really nice once you get to you kind of learn the muscle memory of it.
So it's just like hold for a split second and swipe right, and that's it.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's dope as fuck.
It's
this
really
is
nice.
Cool as shit.
Whereas,
I wish it would be like I wish I could let go and keep swiping if I had like a fuck ton of apps open. Because right now it's like let go and
if
open.
If you hold to the right, it'll keep going.
It'll keep going. Oh, okay. I don't have that many apps open. Oh, okay. Gotcha. This is cool as shit.
It works really well. I have heard from people who have used the iPhone 10 and the Pixel 2 that the iPhone 10's version works better. One thing I think I like about the Pixel more than the iPhone 10 is that the iPhone 10, if you want to go back 3 apps, you have to swipe across 3 times. Whereas the Pixel, you just kind of hold until you get there.
Yep.
But
wow, this is cool as shit.
It works. Excuse me. It works well.
I really like. Man, that's dope as fuck. Okay. Wow. Okay, so what points were I going to make, or was I going to make? Words, grammar. Yeah. Okay. So I was gonna make the point that the swipe up gesture on the iPhone 10 coming from like older Android makes sense, but you just rocked my world with how that works. I saw some videos on Android.
iPhone 10 did it first, though.
You what?
iPhone 10 did it first.
Word, but then I do think that's somewhat like, I don't know if refined is the word, but there's like added features.
Yeah, I would say the iPhone 10's is more refined in that you can like move the little window for the app around all over the place. You can't do that on a Pixel, but I think you have more features on a Pixel. Mm-hmm. There's more things you can do.
So what was the beta like for Android P, Android Pie? It was because when I was on the Android O for Oreo beta, it was buggy as fuck. And all the previous, like I'd done a lot of betas previously on my Nexus and my Pixel, and they were like mad buggy every time. So it was not for you?
It wasn't. It was shockingly stable. I was very skeptical going into it, but I just have this nerd itch to want to be in a beta.
Yeah,
it's the newest, and it's exciting. It's stupid. I know it's dumb, but it's exciting to me. And I was skeptical about it going on a Pixel because I knew with iPhone betas it can be buggy, but it might not be. It's usually okay. Like it works well enough that you're not gonna like be in a life or death situation. You can't make it. I don't want to call. Like it's never like that bad. But I wasn't sure what to expect, and I can't think of any bugs. I can't think of anything.
Yeah,
like nothing bad happened the entire time.
That's good.
And I'd have some problems on iOS betas in the past. Nothing detrimental. Like apps would crash occasionally. I reopen it. I'd continue doing what I was doing.
Right.
But literally nothing. I had no problems with the Android P beta. I'm not sure if that's just because this particular beta was better, just like the iOS 12 beta was particularly better than past betas had been. But it was really, really solid. I was very surprised.
That's good.
I was very, very surprised. I do have one big problem, though, with the beta that carried on into the full release that really bugs me.
Okay.
And that's Bluetooth connectivity.
Ooh, okay, go on.
Did you have this with the Android too?
I have, but what are your specific experiences?
Okay. So what happens with me is I'll connect my AirPods. I don't think it's an AirPod thing. I think it's a Bluetooth connectivity thing.
Oh, God.
Shot, and then I'll continue. I got to pour again.
Oop. I'm literally tweeting at you. There you go. Boom. Done. Anyway.
Do you tweet? You tweeted at me?
I did.
Wait, what?
Twitter? Like right now. Twitter is a thing. I don't know if you knew this.
I'm such an old man. I don't.
I'm literally going to like not chase, but like pre-drink water before the shot. Okay, I'm ready. Are you ready?
Do you tweet at me or Respawn Aim Fire?
You, fam.
I don't see anything.
Well, you know, it
I
just
see.
happened,
Okay.
so it might take a second.
Here we go. Okay.
There you go.
I see it now.
That's a drunk tweet. Anyway,
all right, we'll do the shot. 3, 2,
Fuck.
1, go.
Salud.
So,
Kampai, what other languages? Nostrovia, L'chaim.
what was it talking about again?
You said beta, Android.
Very stable beta. No problems
good.
with it.
Bluetooth problems.
Bluetooth problems. Yes. So, if I connect my AirPods, and I said this a second ago, but I don't think it's an AirPod problem.
Are the AirPods Bluetooth 4.2 or 5?
4.2. They're not 5. I'm assuming they're 4.2 because they're not 5.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, or 4.3, I think is the. Anyway, keep going.
They're 4 point something. They're not 5.
They're 4.
5 is great because the dual band stuff.
Yeah, I got 5 headphones and they're fantastic. But keep going.
Yeah, so it's an issue of audio adjustment, and because I use Bluetooth primarily, it could be just an issue with audio adjustment to begin with, but I don't think it is.
Use case.
So the issue is that when I go to listen to a song, sometimes it'll be quiet, and I'll go to turn up the volume, but it won't turn up. The volume indicator will show it's going up, but the actual volume will not turn up. The other problem that will happen is that it won't go down. It's either it won't go up or it won't go down. It happens sometimes. If I restart my phone, it just continues playing like normal. But that's been an issue for me.
This sounds like a beta thing.
Sounds like a beta thing, but it's carried over to the official release.
Oh, that sounds like an Android thing.
Yep. It's literally the only problem I have had with Android thus far.
Well,
I can forgive it because these phones boot up so fast that it's not really an issue. It takes up 30 seconds of my time if it's a problem.
Although it used to be, god damn it, sometimes on my Pixel and my Nexus, it used to be like, things are too loud. You'd hit the down button, and instead of adjusting the media volume, it would adjust the phone notification volume.
That has been fixed.
Ugh.
That is a specific feature they mentioned in the keynote for Android P.
Oh my god, that was genuinely awful.
It's actually really great. So when you adjust the volume, one thing that's nice is that on Android P now, when you adjust the volume, the indicator for your volume adjustment shows up right next to the volume button.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Which is nice, but it also shows you that you're adjusting your volume for the media, or it shows you're adjusting volume for a call. It shows you all those contextually relevant volume indicators at one time. And you can just adjust with your finger the other one if you want to adjust that one instead.
So it used to, previously, it used to like show all
so
three
much better than
bands
iOS has ever
at
been
the same
to.
time.
What was
So
that?
previously it used to be, so click the lock button on your phone.
1 second. I forgot to set a timer again. 7 minutes.
You bastard.
We'll do 7 minutes.
Yeah,
8?
7 or 8, either way.
We'll do 8.
Okay, yeah. Let's do less alcohol. So if you have your phone open right now and just press up and down, right? It has a little cog under where the little no button is. And if you press that and go into the settings, right?
Yep, that's still there. Yep.
Yeah. So it used to be that when you, I forget what, I think it was maybe 2 versions ago, where you would press up or down on the volume button, and it would show on the top half. You know how when you scroll down, you see the brightness, and it goes across the top. It used to be like that for the volume, where it would go across the top, and it would have a button where you can toggle on and off viewing all 3 of the quote unquote volumes. And if you hit the settings button right now on Android, it'll show you all 3 of the quote unquote volumes. And by that I mean the media, the call volume, and the alarm volume. It would show all those at the same time.
They actually have a different one now. They have media, volume, ring, and alarm.
Correct. It used to be just media, call, and alarm, and I don't know what the difference between ring and call is. What the fuck is the difference there?
When you're listening to the person talking to you versus the ringtone.
Oh, call volume is, I see. So sorry, I guess it's media, ring, and volume as opposed to call, like I said.
But usually, I think iOS treats ring and volume as the same thing. I think
it does, which in my opinion makes a lot more sense. And that was one of the things that had always pissed me off about Android. And it was one of those things where sometimes you had just gotten off a call, but then you were listening to music and you would press up or down on the volume, and it would adjust the call volume and the audio volume, and you were like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Stop being an asshole. And it didn't know what you meant. Like, it's one of those things. That was one of the things. Also, the fact that apparently iOS would show you the like Bluetooth battery percentage.
Yes.
And
I want that so bad on my Android phone.
It should have it now, according to what I've seen. Does it not?
Not for AirPods, it doesn't.
Oh, shit. Okay.
But
it might be Bluetooth 5 and up?
That makes sense. But if I want to see my AirPods battery level, I have to connect them to my MacBook Pro.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really annoying.
Dude, there are so many cool things about Android. They're such a pain in the ass also on Android.
Yeah, what I've kind of learned, though, is that for whatever's a pain in the ass on iOS, there's an equal pain in the ass for Android.
I'm sure. Yeah.
It's
but
not
also,
that one is better than the other.
So talking about, like, going back to us talking about, like, machine learning briefly, when my audio got fucked up, talking about, like, machine learning and, like, AR, like, AR was packaged on Android before it was on iPhone, and it was like rudimentary. You know, it was Google Cardboard and like other stuff, right?
The VR, yeah.
And it was both. They had another AR thing I'm forgetting the name of, but yeah, it was both AR and VR, and like it was not this to the same degree as, you know, what Apple does. But like, again, talking about like differences between iOS and Android, like Apple, generally speaking, I think it's like hit or miss now compared to what it used to be. But Apple, generally speaking, when they release, you know, a technology, AR in this particular instance, they do a better job of packaging it for consumer use, like we were talking about with the measurement app on iOS. Like
100%, yeah.
I haven't seen anything like that on Android, and again, I haven't been using this phone for months, but I haven't seen anything like that. And like, Google was developing that type of software before Apple was, at least publicly. And you don't see anything that's like publicly packaged for public use or like consumer use, even though they've been working on it sooner and presumably are better at it.
Yeah, it's tough to say in that regard because Apple is so tight-knit, and then it talks about things when it's ready, and Google's like, oh, let's talk about it right now. It might not be ready, but let's talk about it. It's like
half-baked. Here you go.
Exactly. So it's hard to gauge that, but I think you're right.
No, I feel you. And like... and that's the thing with just, it's a Google. My problems with Android are more like a Google in general problem, in that, like, you know, messaging strategy is bonkers as fuck. Like, it's wild. It's all over the place. It's fucking garbage. What are you doing?
Yeah, I think that this is a weird analogy. Can I make a weird analogy that will be relevant for a second?
Not allowed. Yes, go for it.
So I was reading this book. It's called Asymmetric Politics. And it was talking about liberals versus conservatives.
I already love it. Go.
And it was basically saying that liberals are more open and free-flowing and like, yeah, whatever, it goes. But because of that, it means that as a political party, Democrats have a hard time having a cohesive message sometimes.
Yep.
Whereas conservatives have a much easier time with that because their messages are more cohesive because as a group, they tend to be more tight-knit and together than liberals do.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the same thing with Android and iOS, or Google and Apple, I mean. Whereas Apple is like, we're going to talk about this only when we're absolutely ready to show it off, and it's going to release next week. And Google is like, hey, we want to test this. This is really cool. We want to show it to you. We're excited. Here it is. And then a year later they go, it was nothing. We're going to get rid of it now. But Apple doesn't do that very often because they're much more controlling in what they announce to the public. Right. I think they have the same processes internally in terms of testing things out and failing and trying again.
Yeah.
But Google shows things before they've been fully tested. Apple does not.
Yep. And there's a lot of like, God, with Google, there's a lot of like, we put this out there and then we don't support it anymore. I mean, like with Allo is no longer like going to be actively supported for the next few years because of RCS.
Of course.
And RCS, I want to make a bet with you. Are you feeling bullish or bearish, to use financial terms, on RCS?
Idealistically, I want it to be a thing because it sounds great.
I agree.
Realistically, it sounds like the carriers aren't going to adopt it, so Google is wasting their time.
I also agree, so I guess we have no bet to make. I was going to like propose a bet, and my bet was Like, and Chad was going to be on. I was going to have him like tell his phone to remind him.
These things are easier with 3 people than 2.
That's right. But I was going to basically I was going to be like, I'll bet you in the next like year or 2 that all of the American carriers will not have adopted RCS.
Yep. It's a shame because it's so.
Damn it! No, I want controversy.
Better.
You're supposed to disagree with me.
No, I really. Oh, shot time.
Fuck. This has gone on for so long. You agree with me? God damn it! It's because you're smart and you're like, nope, yes.
Well, no, I think RCS is such a brilliant idea. It's
Correct.
So perfect. But the issue is that Google wants the carriers to handle the infrastructure for it. And the carriers are like, well, we don't want to be financially incentivized to do that.
Correct.
So, no, we're not going to do it.
I'm going to count. Are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
3, 2, 1, shot, trago. You know what it is?
This is a benefit to being Apple. That's what it is.
Exactly.
Apple can control this kind of thing.
Well, and Google can if they wanted to, but they
can't
ethos
because of fragmentation. The fragmentation with Android prevents them from doing this.
That's fair, but if they wanted to, again, like because Android is what they develop, if they wanted to force messages in, although they can't in Europe because of the lawsuit that just happened, but generally speaking, if they wanted to force, and at least in the States, messages in with RCS and do like Apple saying like, well, fuck it, here's an iMessage alternative, like here's our version of iMessage, you can suck my dick or walk the fuck off. You know what I mean? And like they have to deal with it as opposed to the current like Google philosophy, and this is like Google's philosophy for a long time, is, you know, like let's play nice, let's get cooperative, let's get everyone like working on this thing, which is cool, and I appreciate that, especially as like a lefty, like I want everyone to cooperate and work together, but like at the same time, like
it doesn't work that way, unfortunately, sometimes.
It doesn't work that way with the fucking carriers. Like, with the carriers, they're never going to agree with one another. Never. Especially in the States, let alone internationally, across the globe. Second off, like good luck getting them to agree, first off. Second off, good luck getting, like, your standard to be the standard, because RCS for Google is not the same as RCS for T-Mobile right now. And T-Mobile is the only carrier that does RCS in the States.
Here's the thing, is that Apple can say, oh, you don't want to support our messaging platform. Great. We have hundreds of billions of dollars in the bank. We'll start our own carrier and you can fuck yourselves.
You can go.
Google can't do that. Yeah. Google can't do that. They have the money for it, but they can't do that because their philosophies don't match with it.
Talking about carrier, Google has their own, you know, their own service, right? And it is an MVNO, which means that, like, you know, it's like Cricket, where like they piggyback off like T-Mobile or whatever. And,
it doesn't have any power.
Yeah. Project Fi piggybacks in the States off of T-Mobile and AT&T, which are actually about to emerge in the next few years. But just got really bad heartburn. Thank you, alcohol. A lot. Jesus. This is what happens when you get old and alcohol consumption. You get heartburn. For you younger folks listening.
I don't even know how old you are, so I don't even know what old
I'm only 26. You're older than me.
I'm not older than you. I'm 25.
Oh, shit. Never mind. This whole time. How old is Chad?
I don't know. Chad's older than I am, though. He's like 27, 28. I don't know.
He's older than us.
Yeah. He's an old man.
He's old as fuck. Anyway.
He's sick. He can't be here. His hip broke, so
whatever.
He can't be here.
Well, even like when I was 25 and 24, right? I had heartburn real bad. I don't know what happens when you get older, but...
I don't know. We've been drinking a lot. That happens with alcohol, I think.
It's weird. It happened when I was younger. Anyway.
You're only 26? I'm surprised.
Yeah. You know, I look like I'm 38.
You don't look that old. You carry yourself well.
That's right. Anywho. I don't know. RCS is a whole... There's a whole thing. We really opened a can of worms because it's been an hour and 40 minutes.
We did. Have we talked about iPhone versus Android yet?
I mean, like, generally we have.
Generally,
like, a little bit.
Kind of, yeah.
I don't know what else to talk. Like, what else? Okay, so, like, what else about iPhone? Like, off the top of your head, off your notes, what do you have to say?
I think that a big difference between how Apple handles their built-in native apps versus how Google handles their native apps is Google wants to offer you a full experience when possible, and Apple doesn't. And I think a good example of that is the Mail app. They want to make a Mail app that does the basic functions so that Apple can sell another third-party app in the App Store for mail that does something that their app doesn't do. Whereas Google Gmail app is, I'm convinced, the best email client you can get.
Have you used Inbox by Google?
Yes, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the Gmail app.
Do you prefer Gmail over the Inbox app?
I used Inbox very briefly. I was so pleased with
really?
Gmail when I was using it that I just never really thought to use Inbox too much.
I genuinely... Inbox, my problem with Inbox on mobile, and this is both Android and iPhone, is that like you know how like sometimes it'll like group, it'll automatically group emails in like a particular group for you. When it does for groups that you create, it doesn't give you notifications, which like really annoyed me. So on desktop, I tend to use Inbox, whereas on mobile, I use like, any app really other than the Inbox because it doesn't notify you, what I want to be notified of. You really don't like Inbox though? Like on mobile or desktop?
I just haven't used it too much. By the time I got to Android and was really using Google apps, they'd already announced that they were going to discontinue Inbox.
Oh,
so
really? This is a thing?
This is a thing, yeah. So I just never really wanted to use it too much. I think they brought a lot of those functions to the Gmail
They
app,
did. So like one of them was like when you are viewing an email, it gives you like auto response options.
Yep.
Like,
That's
and
nice,
that was okay in Inbox. But what I really liked about Inbox was like the general layout where it like parsed things for you in different groups.
If I remember correctly, it kind of, the goal of it was, we know you get a lot of shit in your email. We're going to show you only the important things.
Yes and no, in that like it would take some of the unimportant things and like group them with other unimportant things. Like it would be like promotions, kind of like how Gmail does, but you have to click on it and get into like a separate like sub menu. Whereas like in your inbox, it was like, here are your promotions section. Here's your notifications section for like Facebook or like whatever the fuck else you get email notifications for. Facebook was a poor example because I don't get those. But anyway, you know what I mean? Like it groups them depending on a category. And I on desktop prefer that, like I'm going to go to it right now. I prefer this UI versus the Gmail UI. Because it's just a lot more like visually legible and like visually parsable, and that carries over to mobile to a certain degree. But the problem with mobile is that like I would group things depending on like freelance jobs, and then I wouldn't get notifications because for some reason like the groups don't get notifications, and that annoyed me because I needed to get them. Anyway.
My email stuff is very straightforward. This kind of goes back to the whole I'm an old man thing, and I don't do...
You're using the Gmail app right now? Or what are you
I'm using the Gmail app, yeah. And actually, I reloaded my iPad recently, and I loaded the Gmail app on that. So this is true of iOS too. And that what it does so well for me, and this is probably true of Inbox too, is only show me in my inbox the emails that I actually care about. Correct. I've gone through my spam and like all email sections a few times just to see if I'm missing anything, and there's been nothing. It is so good at figuring out just the things I should actually be looking at.
Is that not the case for the Mail app on iPhone?
Absolutely not. On iPhone,
I don't use it because in my opinion, even as a designer, in my opinion, it looks plain and stupid as shit. But,
and it's a very... I don't think... I would be shocked actually if Apple disagreed with me here. Because it's a generic email app, and I think that's what it's designed to do.
It is literally designed to look generic. Like, it looks generic as fuck.
I think it's designed to say, hey, your emails go here. Look at your emails. But it doesn't do anything to sort them for you.
Blue dot, here you go. You haven't read it.
Exactly. Like, here's an email from Amazon Services. Aren't you excited? No, because it's some stupid advertisement. And that's what Google hides from me, and that's what's nice. I look at my email, and I have 5 emails that were important, as opposed to the 300 I got in. Yeah, that's just whatchamacallit. Oh God, I had so much to drink, I can't think of the basic word.
Words.
I'm exaggerating, but it's not as bad as making
the
it
badge
seem.
Or
but
whatever.
Google is really good at figuring out what do I want to look at.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the Gmail app so good. And that's true of iOS. And even on the iOS app, you can load in email apps or email services that aren't Gmail. So if you use Outlook, if you use something else, you can put it in the Gmail app. Like, if you're an iPhone user, just get rid of the Mail app on your iPhone. It's not worth it.
I knew that going into the iPhone. I was like, fuck the Mail app. It looks like shit. I'm not going to use it.
It is shit, yeah.
It looks gross. It doesn't. It's just like, here's white on white on white on white, which is like impossible to parse visually. Like it's so hard to look through. Ugh.
But it's a great example of where I think Google is heading and where Apple is heading. And Apple has been so focused through its entire life on, and this is not a bad thing, on making a really good user experience for the apps that you use. But in the past, 10 years or so, artificial intelligence has become a really big part of that. And Google, it seems, has invested far more in that stuff than Apple has. And that's where I think Android becomes a better operating system than iPhone. Because it does so many of those small things better. You
know what's funny, though, is that I agree and disagree as a designer and as an aspiring UI UX designer. I agree and I disagree with the premise that Apple is better at UI and UX design because at the same
I would say UX, not UI.
Sure, but yeah. I think that's a good take because visually speaking, I think Google does a better job now with their default stock apps, whereas with iPhone they look like shit in my opinion. They look boring as fuck and they look awful. But in terms of the UX experience of you swipe this way to get this response and you swipe that way to get that response, it makes intuitive sense. And you may or may not get that on certain Google stock apps, unfortunately. But in terms of visually, again, talking about inbox versus the mail app on iPhone, visually parsing your emails is a lot easier on inbox on mobile versus looking at just this white block of shit on your mail app and it's what is happening? It's when you first open it, it's oh god, there's just a wall of text and the gestures to swipe, to delete or flag or whatever and mark as unread or whatever intuitively makes sense in terms of you swipe to do X thing, but it's still, I feel like Google's catching up. Catching up to UX in that sense is very easy, whereas catching up to UI is hard to do when you're entrenched. And it's not difficult to do in terms of redesigning a thing visually, but Apple is entrenched in the look and feel of iOS. And
I think that's where, because Google is so focused on their artificial intelligence, I think their apps work better as a result. Whereas Apple's thinking about, well, how is this laid out? And that's a good thing to think about. But artificial intelligence is so important nowadays in how you lay things out.
Well, and then Google can just rip off the laid out part. You swipe right to do this. And
exactly.
Swipe left to do that.
Exactly.
Steal it. Done. For instance, Inbox was the first app that I had to use personally to if you swiped, I forget if it was right or left, but if you swiped in a certain direction really hard, you could reschedule certain emails. And so if I bought a flight, I would be reschedule this email to come back to me 2 days before.
Exactly. The snooze function is so good.
Oh,
why doesn't iOS have that?
It does not. The snooze on emails is dope as fuck. There's a ton of shit like that just makes so much sense. And
but again, it shows that example of where Google is now thinking about these small things that made a big difference, which is what Apple used to think about and what I used to appreciate about the Apple products. But Google now seems to be taking those reins.
Yep. It's weird because it's a weird, people are oh, Google, Apple's so good at UX and UI, and it's well, I don't know, yes and no. Yes, they're good in certain ways, but also Google's better in other ways, and it's better in other ways because they're the first to use that snooze function in Inbox and Gmail and the shit like that is super intuitive and makes so much sense.
Exactly. And I think that's kind of where a few years ago when Apple was just getting into iCloud, there seemed to be this battle coming up where Apple had to become Google faster than Google was becoming Apple.
Yeah.
And it feels like Google won that. They became Apple faster than Apple became Google.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that it's like the process is complete per se, but like
no, but I think they're doing better.
Google, caught up at this point in time, like at now. Yeah, like Apple. I don't know. Apple feels. I don't know if stagnant is the right word. It's not necessarily stagnant because they are like changing some stuff, but it is a little slower per se.
I didn't set the timer again. I think we're due for a shot.
Fuck. Okay.
We'll take a shot now, and then I'll set a timer.
This is the last shot.
This is the last shot? Okay. Yeah.
No way we're taking more.
Yeah, we've been going for about 2 hours at this point.
Literally. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's pour. God damn. Woo, I knew this was going to be like... I knew the iOS versus Android was just going to be a whole thing.
This might be like a to be continued type deal.
I mean, such is the nature of these things.
Exactly.
Oh,
These things always change. Uh-oh.
I just dropped the bottle. Anyway.
That's the sign that there's been a lot of drinking, is when the bottle has been dropped.
Correct. At least it was capped. You count.
Yeah.
The final shot. Go.
2, 1. Final shot.
Boom.
Whew.
It's the final countdown. Oh, God. We are not sober. Anyway,
no, God. Not even a little bit.
Do you have anything else on the top of your head or on your notes to say about iOS versus Android in general?
We briefly touched upon the customization, which it's such a cliched thing to bring up on Android because everyone brings it up, but it's really important.
I agree, totally. And there's something like, and it goes hand in hand with the customization of it, but like when you go from iPhone to Android, there's something like, and this is a very cliche, stupid way of putting it, but it feels very like edgy almost. Like it feels like you're on the bleeding edge of like what can be done on a phone. Yeah.
Whereas that's a good way of putting it.
iPhone feels like very stable. It's just a very stable, boring experience. Whereas like being on and like more and more now being on, especially the Pixel and like Samsung, but being on Android phones is more and more stable, but not as stable as iPhone. But like also like you are on like the cutting edge of what Google and the operating system is doing.
Yeah, I think like things like scrolling is where you'll see an example of what you're talking about, where scrolling on a web page feels smoother on an iPhone. It works.
My God, yes. For some reason, like going from like the Mac scrolling up and down to like Android scrolling up and down makes more sense than going from Mac to iOS. Like, I don't know what it. For some reason, like I don't know. I don't know if Apple like fucked that up or what, but like.
But it's really smooth on iOS.
Yeah, for real.
iOS is buttery smooth, and in a way that Android is not. Yeah. It's not that Android's not smooth. It's very smooth, but it's just something about iPhone is just so much smoother. You know what it is the animations like between apps and stuff. It feels better. Like, like swiping up from the home button, like all the apps like flow into place like they do with that animation. It's smooth as fuck. Whereas like Android, I don't think it's the analogy is correct to like between like you wouldn't say like Mac is to iPhone as Android is to Windows, right? Like you wouldn't make that analogy per se. I know what you mean. It's a very easy analogy to make, but it's not necessarily the most accurate. It's not. Yeah. As someone who's used Windows 10 very recently, it's not a good analogy. In that, I feel like Windows 10 on a Dell and Windows 10 on a HP are the same thing, whereas Android on a Samsung versus Android on an HTC are not the same thing. Samsung versus HTC are not the same thing. And to add to that point, I think that like going from iOS to Android is a lot more similar than going from Mac to Windows. Just generally speaking, and on top of that, it's both because Android. I mean, if we're gonna get technical, I know iOS isn't based on Unix, but Android is actually, which is funny enough. Just like Mac is based on Unix. Opposite. Is it? iPhone is based on Unix. Android's based on Linux. Oh, correct. Thank you, Linux. But Linux is Unix. It's an imitation of Unix.
But it's like a because Unix used to be. Did it not be open? Was it not open source at one point in time?
I don't have an answer to that. I have no idea. But I know Linux is open source.
We're testing our knowledge. But I can
look it up. Right? You go. I'll find out for you.
The kernel. No, you're right. The kernel for Android is Linux, which is open source.
Yes.
You're right. The kernel being like if the analogy serves, like the engine of the operating system, whereas is iOS based on Darwin? Am I correct in bringing that up?
Yes. So it's based on a Darwin, and that Darwin is a Darwin of Unix. Which is basically what OS 10 is based off of.
There you go.
Or
they're
Mac
very
OS
similar, as opposed to like Windows is not part of that.
Yeah, exactly. It's not at all. Yeah.
Like it's not, and it operates very differently. Like even as someone who, like I used to have a Surface, I've used Windows 10 a lot. It does not operate the same way. So the analogy does not hold. But anyway, like I think Android and iOS are more similar than like Windows and Mac. If you're going to make the comparison, right?
Yeah.
And
sure.
I don't know. I was going somewhere with that, but I'm drunk, and it's hard to go somewhere after that whole thing.
It is hard to make full thoughts when you're drunk.
I have like half-ass notes, and I should have made like complete notes because it's hard to think of. Anyway, iOS versus Android is a whole thing, but if you're gonna go Android, I agree with Holden. You got to go Pixel. And by I agree with Holden, I mean I agree with my recent past, where I also had a Pixel phone. Because man, the benefit of Android is that you get the updates early, just like you would on an iPhone. You don't
with
have to
a
deal
Pixel,
with
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to deal with Samsung's bullshit UI that looks ugly as balls.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Is that like for me, and this is probably because I've had an iPhone for so long, and that if I have an iPhone, I expect software updates every year because I'm used to that experience. But it would be so baffling to me if I got a Samsung phone and I didn't get an update to that phone in a major way ever. I'll get security updates, I'll get that kind of stuff.
Of course.
But I'm not going to get, a new OS.
Feature updates.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I
so
lied when
me.
I told you that my first Nexus or my first Android device was the HTC One. My first Android device was actually, and so, I had an iPhone 4 and I was considering getting the iPad mini when it literally just was a new product. And I was like, what convinced me against it was...
Wait, iPad mini?
Yeah, like when the iPad mini first dropped, was a first product.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, this sounds cool. It's really expensive, though. And then I looked at the Android equivalent in terms of, and this is a nerd thing to do. We were talking about it earlier. I looked at the pixels per inch on it. Like the fucking density on the pixels. And I was like, yo, I'm paying way more for the iPad mini when on a Nexus 7 I can get twice the density of the pixels, and my pictures that I take will look better on it. And that was my first Android device, and I loved it.
Nexus 7 was a good device.
It's a great little tablet, and it's a good little e-reader size. And so I got into the Kindle app and stuff back then, and I have ever since then I haven't bought a physical book. Got into the apps, but that's what got me into Android, man. Was the Nexus 7 tablet, the first gen. I also had a second gen, but that's a different story to tell.
Yeah, I think my dad had a Nexus 7, and I really liked that device. It had cool.
It's not bad. Rubbery back.
Yeah, rubbery back. Exactly. It was a nice.
It feels good.
Nice design. The Nexus products were nice because they were good hardware, but also really cheap. That Nexus 7 was not expensive. I don't mean cheap, it was inexpensive.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Where it was built decently and was not expensive at all.
My Nexus 4 was $349, and it was a flagship phone.
Right. If I remember correctly, that was made by LG.
LG. Yep.
And as was the Nexus 5, which are both hailed.
I don't know. They switched to HTC at some point, but I think that was still a LG at that point.
Yeah, I if I remember correctly, the 5 is also LG. I might be wrong, but I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man.
I think you're right. I don't know, but I think you're right.
Okay, we're probably due for another shot. I'm going to cut it off here because we've been going on forever. It's been like 2 hours, fam.
Yeah.
God, okay, we could do this for like 8 years.
Yeah, we could really talk about iPhone versus Android.
It would be
for a while.
Good content for like literally 8 years. I promise you. Like we, Holden and I
literally changes every year. So
we are smart motherfuckers. We could talk about this for a literal entire year, just sitting here, and it's because we're so smart. Anyway.
Wait. Oh, what was this from? Our brain is so big. What's that from? What's that from?
I
don't know. I'm so drunk. I can't think, but I just had that thought in my head. Our brain is
keep
so
thinking
big.
Pinky in the Brain.
Oh, no, one
so
it is. It was a Trevor Noah bit comparing Donald Trump to African presidents.
Oh, that's a great little segment.
It is a great segment. It's so random that I thought about
before
that
Trump
right
became
now.
president too.
It was, yeah. Or it was
it's such a funny little segment too.
It honestly is a great segment to watch. Donald Trump, African presidents. Great comparison by Trevor Noah. It's hysterical.
It does hold.
It really does, unfortunately, hold. Yeah.
On that note, thank you very much for listening. I will bid you adieu. Go listen to Holden DePardo is here from the Respawn Aim Fire podcast. They do gaming. Yes. They do gaming content like every Tuesday. So
yeah, gaming industry, gaming business, gaming what we're playing, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Word. It's good shit. Go check them out. Anyway, peace. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Repetitive sedatives like every veteran, never remembering.
Boom.
Ever degenerate. Instead of forgetting and letting them live in the setting like sediment, I'm that part. Mix it up with 6 guy Rage Against Machine, bit of J-Rock, K-Dot. Switch it up, gangsta. Getting on my stage props, Dilla with the beats and catch me singing like.
As always, thanks for tuning in to this episode of Techquila.
Mama call me Yeshua, running out of time with the Harry Potter headscarf. I ain't got a desk job.
For the regular listeners, I'd like to thank you for your support and ask that you please help us to continue to improve the show by heading over to our Patreon page and donating $1 a month.
Head farts, yeah, that's for all your gum smack, mud flat, scuzzbag, unwrapped sex.
By donating just $1 a month, you'll really be helping us out, and you'll get Techquila closer to hitting our goal of $30 per month.
Yeah, this is how I rap before I hit it. Top shit, but I still respect women.
Once that goal is reached, I personally will be designing and sending each of you a Techquila branded shot glass or two to show my appreciation. So head over to patreon.com/Techquila to support the show. That's Patreon, which is spelled patreon.com/Techquila.
Like egregious kids are just in front and like you Jesus and elitist pimps come from Mars and bitches come from Venus. The way I see us is my strength is all your weakness. Treat them like a hedonist. Every obstacle defeated. Preach it, I'ma see to it.
Remember, you can submit topics for the show and interact with me and guests on the subreddit, which is found at reddit.com/r/Techquila.
That's for all your joke rap, smoke ploys. That's for all your go brag, no have, low grab. Oh.
You can follow Techquila on Twitter for the latest hot takes on tech news at TechQuilaCast.
Watch list that did it. Yeah, this is how I rap before I hit it. Talk shit, but I still respect women.
The Techquila theme song is Ride Out by Yeshua, which is spelled YSHWA. You can also find him online as Vincent Augustus. Thanks, y'all.
Ride out. They ain't praising my same, my miracle. They ain't in my blunt. Ride out. They ain't praising my same, my miracle. They ain't in my blood. Ride out. They ain't praising my same, my miracle. They ain't in my blood. Ride out. They ain't praising my.
Boom goes the dynamite. Yo, I'm not sober.